Chapter 1887. No, if I don't leave, I'm afraid we won't be able to leave. The young girl took a few steps forward and looked up at the 5 figures with blazing auras. She knew very well that with the cultivation and strength of the 5 from the school of vertical and horizontal, the elders in her family would not be able to stop them. They would not have the chance to escape either. The young girl bit her red lips and said, "Let them go. You only want the item on my body. They don't have the strength to fight against the school of vertical and horizontal." "Huh, do you think you have the ability to bargain with the school of vertical and horizontal? But you're smart, little girl." The middle-aged leader looked down at the crowd and looked at the young girl called Jia Jia. He said with a hint of mockery, "However, I'm in a good mood today. I'll give you a chance. Hand over the treasure and I'll let those ants go. The treasure is on my body and I can't control it." "Only I can go with you," said the young girl. The treasure was dormant in her mind's Niwen palace. She could not control it now. Since things had come to this, she could only go with them. At least she could protect the elders, brothers, and sisters of the Wei family. "Jia Jia, you can't. Retreat quickly. We'll stop them." The white-haired elder and the middle-aged man leaped in front of the young girl and blocked her path. The auras of several figures surged as they summoned their artifacts and Dao artifacts. They gritted their teeth and fought. "Humph, a bunch of ants who overestimate themselves. You're asking for death." Among the 5 from the school of vertical and horizontal, a slightly older and extraordinary youth's face darkened. He had already lost his patience and was too lazy to speak. He looked down at the dozen or so people as if they were his prey. Then, his figure immediately dove down. In the blink of an eye, the figure appeared in front of the dozen or so people like a ghost. Blazing profound chi that filled the sky suddenly swept out from his body. Instantly, the surrounding space became like a furnace. The space distorted and a terrifying heatwave rolled out. Seeing the momentum caused by the youth from the school of vertical and horizontal, the white-haired elder's face changed in shock. He had just become a martial saint. Naturally, he knew that the other party was already a mysterious martial saint despite his young age. Furthermore, he was a member of the school of vertical and horizontal. The difference between the two was too great. If they wanted to escape today, they could only rely on a miracle. "Retreat, quickly retreat." However, the old man did not retreat. He had no other choice and shouted at the young woman behind him. At the same time, he charged towards the young man. He did not hold back at all as he unleashed his newly ascended martial saint aura. A powerful attack immediately blocked the path of the young man from the school of vertical and horizontal. "You're courting death." The young man from the house of vertical and horizontal simply spat out 2 words. A cold glint flashed in his eyes, and the space around him began to distort. A terrifying, blazing energy began to spread throughout the canyon. He raised his hand and slapped out. A gigantic handprint was formed, and he arrogantly slapped at the old man from the house of Wei. Bang! The speed of the collision was very fast. When the two collided, the huge energy ripples suddenly exploded and surged out in all directions. The surrounding canyon cracked, and huge rocks collapsed and rolled down. Pucci, a mouthful of blood spurted out from the mouth of the Wei clan elder as his body smashed into the stone walls of the valley like a kite with its string cut. The impact caused the stone walls to explode as his body slid down. He stood up shakily, dripping with blood and looking extremely miserable and weak. He was simply no match for his opponent. Too terrifying. The hearts of the people from the house of Wei trembled when they saw that their great-grandfather had been seriously injured in a single move. Their opponent's strength was too terrifying. On top of the canyon, the middle-aged leader indifferently swept his gaze over them. His eyes flickered as he said in a dark voice, "Capture that woman alive. Kill the rest without mercy." When the middle-aged leader finished speaking, the youngest of the group, a 17 or 18-year-old youth, appeared near the young woman called Jia Jia at lightning speed. His eyes were cold as he said, "You seem to have some talent. However, the ants of the outside world will never be able to compare to our house of vertical and horizontal. Jia Jia, be careful." Several people from the house of Wei cried out in alarm. They immediately rushed out to protect the young woman. "Ants, you're courting death." With a few cold shouts, two figures from the house of vertical and horizontal rushed over. Blazing profound energy surged out like lightning. With a wave of their hands, several figures were sent flying, each of them spitting out blood. This was because the two from the house of vertical and horizontal did not consider the house of Wei to be their opponents. They did not take them seriously and were intentionally mocking them. Otherwise, these people would have been completely annihilated. Qi La. At this moment, the young man from the house of vertical and horizontal used his cultivation at the peak of the perfect martial emperor stage to throw a punch at the delicate young woman from the house of Wei. A terrifying, blazing air wave and sonic boom were heard, exploding in the canyon like firecrackers. The young woman's face turned serious, and her eyebrows were tightly knitted. In an instant, many formation flags appeared in her hands and gathered around her body at an extremely fast speed. She displayed her powerful primordial spirit strength and formation skills. A 7-star mysterious formation was instantly formed, covering the canyon and enveloping the young man from the house of vertical and horizontal. Rumble, enveloped by the formation, the canyon shook and the mountains shook. Runes filled the sky, and a terrifying power descended, causing the clouds in all directions to move. Although this formation was only at the 7-star mysterious formation, it was extremely extraordinary. It caused the few people from the house of vertical and horizontal to stop and look at each other in surprise. A 7-star mysterious formation. Unfortunately, it's still a little weak. A deep and proud voice came from the formation. Terrifying, blazing runes rushed out from the formation. They were as hot as magma and rumbled in the canyon. Bang, 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 not long after, the formation suddenly exploded. Rolling, blazing flames rushed out, and a deep sonic boom was heard. Broken runes filled the sky and poured into the canyon, exuding a destructive aura. Pfft, the young woman staggered back. The formation was forcefully shattered, causing her to spit out dark red blood. Her delicate face was pale. Humph. A deep, cold snort was heard. The young man from the house of vertical and horizontal pounced out from the broken formation. A claw covered in flames distorted the void and instantly arrived in front of the young woman. The huge power imprisoned everything. The chi and primordial spirit in the young woman's body trembled and were suppressed. She could not dodge at all. Her beautiful face turned pale, and despair surged in her eyes. The man from the house of vertical and horizontal was too strong. She was no match for him. Swish, however, at this moment, just as the young woman was in despair, a light yellow light suddenly rushed out from between her eyebrows like lightning, emitting the sound of wind and thunder. In an instant, the light yellow light turned into an ancient sword. It was covered in dazzling ancient runes. It rushed like lightning to the blazing claw and pierced through it. Ah, a scream was heard. The young man from the house of vertical and horizontal was screaming. His palm was dripping with blood, and his body staggered back. He clenched his right hand tightly, and there was a bloody hole in his palm. There was a terrifying power that injured his primordial spirit. Buzz! The ancient sword was filled with wind and thunder. It lingered in the void of the canyon and automatically turned into a huge sword around the young woman. It was like a huge beast hiding in the dark clouds. The terrifying aura seemed to have crossed time and space and descended from the ancient times. It was oppressive. It's that treasure. Above the canyon, the middle-aged leader of the house of vertical and horizontal revealed a blazing look. That was the treasure he was looking for, and its origin was extraordinary. Boom! Without any hesitation, the middle-aged leader of the House of Vertical and Horizontal rushed out with a blazing light. A vast amount of blazing chi swept out. The runes flickered and directly condensed into a blazing flame. It was like a sea of fire that came crashing down from above the canyon. The wind and clouds in the canyon suddenly surged. The terrifying energy that spread out from the blazing flame seemed to want to destroy everything. The cracks on the walls of the canyon continued to spread. The terrifying sea of fire enveloped the huge sword, wanting to imprison it. The ancient runes on the huge sword were blazing. A terrifying pressure erupted. Wind and thunder rumbled without end. It was not afraid of the middle-aged leader of the House of Vertical and Horizontal at all. The remaining 4 people from the House of Wei and the House of Vertical and Horizontal all raised their heads and watched anxiously. A pretty good treasure. A clear voice rang out. Just as everyone watched anxiously, a purple-robed figure quietly appeared. He strangely appeared between the huge sword and the blazing sea of fire. What's going on? Suddenly, a strange scene appeared. When the purple figure appeared, the huge sword began to rumble and faintly began to retreat, as if it was afraid of the purple figure. As for the sea of fire that the middle-aged leader of the House of Vertical and Horizontal had summoned, it was directly isolated when it was 3 meters away from the purple-robed figure. It was unable to take a single step forward. This scene made the House of Wei below the canyon dumbfounded. The 5 people from the House of Vertical and Horizontal also darkened their expressions. It's him. The young girl from the House of Wei's pale face was shocked. She recognized the purple-robed figure. It was the heavily injured man that she had saved not long ago. Who dares to interfere with the matters of the House of Vertical and Horizontal? Do you have a death wish? The middle-aged leader of the House of Vertical and Horizontal appeared above the sea of fire. His aura surged wildly, carrying the pressure of the House of Vertical and Horizontal. His eyes were like volcanoes that were about to erupt. The House of Vertical and Horizontal. The scar at the corner of the newcomer's eye was eye-catching. His hair fluttered in the wind. He raised his eyes slightly to look at the middle-aged man from the House of Vertical and Horizontal. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. As the mysterious runes on the talisman surged, he waved his hand and swept it. Bang, quietly, the void trembled. An invisible wave appeared around the middle-aged man from the House of Vertical and Horizontal. The surrounding void suddenly exploded and collapsed without him noticing. Rumble, instantly, the sky and earth trembled. The sea of fire in the surroundings also began to disperse, turning into broken flame runes. The energy spread and rushed into the sky. The middle-aged leader of the House of Vertical and Horizontal was directly annihilated in the collapsing void. Not even his corpse was left behind. Even his soul was destroyed. Goo goo, this scene made everyone suck in a breath of cold air. Their throats were boiling, and they could not regain their senses for a long time. The remaining 4 disciples from the House of Vertical and Horizontal were also dumbfounded. It took them a while to regain their senses, and their expressions changed drastically. Who exactly are you? How dare you kill someone from the House of Vertical and Horizontal? You will definitely be hunted down by the House of Vertical and Horizontal. You will beg for death. The slightly older extraordinary young man from the House of Vertical and Horizontal stared straight at Du Xiaofu and shouted. His gaze was cold. Who would dare to touch someone from the House of Vertical and Horizontal? There was a faint trace of fear in the depths of his eyes. Chapter 1888. Noisy. The scarred man spat out a single word. At the same time, he waved his sleeves. Walala, instantly, everyone could clearly see that as the scarred man waved his sleeves, spatial energy ripples rippled out like waves. The energy spread out in all directions. Then, the remaining 4 members of the School of Vertical and Horizontal seemed to have sensed something. Their pupils constricted, and fear appeared in their eyes. The void around them distorted, and in a situation where they could not dodge at all, for white python phantoms pierced through their bodies. Bang, 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 bang. For deep sonic booms rang out, and the blood of the 4 school of vertical and horizontal disciples spilled across the canyon, their spirits destroyed. Everything calmed down after that. All the members of the Wei clan were dumbfounded and gasped. 5 powerful experts of the school of vertical and horizontal had been killed in an instant, clean and tidy. What kind of terrifying strength was this? To these members of the Wei clan, what kind of courage was this? Those were the members of the school of vertical and horizontal. How many people in the world would dare to touch them? The scarred man turned his head and looked at the giant sword in the void. He sized it up curiously, and his eyes flickered. He was moved. This scarred man was naturally Du Xiaofu, who had used a disguise technique to disguise himself. He had followed the school of vertical and horizontal all the way here, so naturally, Du Xiaofu would not be courteous to them. Not a bad sword. Du Xiaofu said softly as he sized up the ancient giant sword. He felt that it would not be inferior to Ouyang Shuang's Majiao sword. It's him, the one who was seriously injured. The members of the Wei clan recognized Du Xiaofu. Many of their faces flushed, and they did not dare to look directly at him. They had originally thought that he was a weakling. Who would have thought that this person was actually so powerful? Huff, a few of the Wei clan's youths gasped inwardly, their hair standing on end. They secretly rejoiced that they did not provoke that man earlier. Otherwise, they would not be alive now. Whoosh, whoosh. The giant sword glowed, dazzling in the void. Its pressure swept out and released a thunderous sound towards Du Xiaofu. Then, it shrank into a ray of light and returned to the girl's forehead. He is much stronger than those people from the school of vertical and horizontal. Would he kill for the treasure? Everyone from the Wei clan was on guard. They retreated and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal. That scarred man, horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal, horizontal and horizontal and horizontal. Horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal, horizontal and vertical and horizontal, horizontal and vertical and horizontal and horizontal. The world of the world cultivations horizontal and horizontal. Horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal, horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and God Yayan horizontal horizontal Che red horizontal, 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 horizontal and horizontal, horizontal horizontal and horizontal, horizontal and horizontal horizontal horizontal. The girl looked at Du Xiaofu. Her pale face was still very moving. She understood the world of cultivators very well. Since the man in front of her could kill people from the school of vertical and horizontal, he probably would not let them go. Du Xiaofu looked at the people from the Wei clan in the canyon. His gaze swept across them one by one and finally landed on the girl. He said, "Don't worry. I've killed people for their treasures before, but I won't do it to you today. The commotion here will probably attract others. You're all heavily injured. I can escort you for a few days. You can also choose not to follow me." Whoosh, as soon as he finished speaking, Du Xiaofu's figure had already swept forward, no longer paying attention to the people from the Wei clan. He's gone. Looking at Du Xiaofu's departing figure, the people from the Wei clan were still in disbelief. They found it hard to believe that there was someone in the heavenly devil battlefield who did not kill people for their treasures. That man is too strong, and he killed people from the school of vertical and horizontal. Why would he protect my life for no reason? It's better for us to stay away from him. The middle-aged man called third uncle by the girl spoke. That scarred man made him feel wary, and he wanted to stay away from him. He's right. We're all injured, and the commotion here will definitely attract others. When that happens, our luck won't be as good. He doesn't look like he wants to deal with us. I think we can follow him. At the very least, he'll be able to protect us for now, the girl said to the group. She felt that the scarred man was a trustworthy person. Besides, they didn't have much of a choice at the moment. Jia Jia, you're still young and inexperienced. Who knows what that person's goal is? It's best to be careful. The middle-aged man was a little worried. If he wants to kill us, he can do it now. There's no need to wait until later. I think we can trust him. The girl insisted. For some reason, she felt that the scarred man was a trustworthy person. His eyes just now were clear and penetrating. Those clean eyes of his made her feel very safe. She trusted her intuition. I think what Jia Jia said makes sense. Right now, we have no other choice. If that person can protect us for a few days, it'll be great. A girl from the Wei family said, agreeing with the girl's words. At the moment, they were all injured. If they were to encounter anyone who wanted to attack them in the Heavenly Devil battlefield, they would be doomed. Besides, there were other dangers lurking around. Then let's listen to Jia Jia. The white-haired old man nodded. There were still traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. He took out a pill from his chinkuan pouch and stuffed it into his mouth. Whoosh whoosh, since the old man had already nodded, the others didn't say anything else. They all moved and chased after Du Xiaofu. In the air, Du Xiaofu didn't move too fast. He felt the movement behind him, but he didn't turn back. A faint smile appeared on his face. Although he didn't need the girl's help back then, he still owed the girl a favor. If he could protect her for a few days, they wouldn't have anything to do with each other in the future. As for the girl's treasured sword, although it was extraordinary, it was probably on par with Ouyang Shuang's bite and sword. If it was in the hands of the school of vertical and horizontal, the dragons, or the legalism, Du Xiaofu would have snatched it without hesitation. However, the treasured sword was with the young girl. Not to mention owing her a favor, Du Xiaofu couldn't even do something as simple as killing her and seizing her treasures. That treasured sword was extraordinary, but it was far from being comparable to Du Xiaofu's Purple Thunder Profound Cauldron. That treasured sword clearly had a spirit and had already recognized the girl as its master. Du Xiaofu wouldn't force it. In the air, Du Xiaofu was in front, and the people from the Wei family followed behind. They didn't get too close. This place is very secluded. I will set up a restriction so you can heal your wounds without worry. 4 hours later, Du Xiaofu's figure landed in an ancient mountain forest. He said to the people from the Wei family who had been following behind him. Chapter 1889. The Wei clan members landed on the ground, their breathing labored. They were already heavily injured, and after flying for so long, they were already exhausted. Thank you for saving us, Senior. The young girl hesitated for a moment, then walked up to Du Xiaofu's side and bowed gracefully, her voice crisp. In her heart, this young man before her had such terrifying strength. He was definitely a senior who had cultivated for many years. Only then did Du Xiaofu take a closer look at the young girl. Although she was not devastatingly beautiful, she was definitely a beauty. She could not compare to Qi Yeshi, Su Muxin, Zi Xian, Ouyang Shuang, and the others, but she was not much inferior to Ji Jian. Nodding slightly to the young girl, Du Xiaofu said indifferently, I'm not that old, so I'm not some senior. Also, that treasured sword of yours has automatically entered your Naiwan palace, but it has yet to truly recognize you as its master, so it cannot be controlled by you. Try to communicate with it with your primordial spirit. Perhaps you will have a chance to truly recognize it as its master. Thank you, Senior, the young girl's voice trailed off, her bright eyes looking at Du Xiaofu. Her expression was somewhat nervous and awkward, not knowing how to address him. In the end, she said, I am Wei Jiejia, a member of the Wei clan of Shang Prefecture's Qingyun Island. How should I address you, sir? My surname is Qiao. Du Xiaofu did not say anything more. He casually set up a restriction nearby, then said to the Wei clan members, heal your wounds here before we set off. And a powerful talisman master at that. Wei Jiejia's eyes glowed as she looked at the restriction Du Xiaofu casually set up. As a talisman master herself, she could clearly see that this was a powerful talisman master. The other party was also a martial and talisman cultivator, but who knew how much stronger he was compared to her. Thank you, Sir Qiao. Afterwards, the old man and middle-aged man from the Wei clan stepped forward and bowed to Du Xiaofu. They were very polite, expressing their thanks for his protection. Du Xiaofu learned from Wei Jiejia that the old man was her great-grandfather and the middle-aged man was her third uncle. Du Xiaofu nodded. After finding a place to set up a simple enchantment, he took a few elixirs and some spiritual medicine, then he continued to adjust his breath. Du Xiaofu had not been able to meditate for long before he was interrupted, and his injuries had yet to fully recover. At this moment, Du Xiaofu wanted to fully recover from his injuries before setting off. After all, this place was filled with danger. They could encounter dragons, legalism, and the school of vertical and horizontal at any time. Du Xiaofu had to be careful. Seeing that Du Xiaofu was already meditating, none of the Wei clan members dared to disturb him. Soon after, they all sat down cross-legged and began meditating as well. Time passed slowly. Du Xiaofu's body was shrouded in golden light. Energy lingered around him like rays of auspicious golden light blooming. After his physical body left the void passage, it was constantly recovering under the effects of the indestructible Xian body. The elixirs and spiritual medicine that Du Xiaofu had taken earlier were now being absorbed by the golden rock and circulating within his body. Du Xiaofu circulated his cultivation method, guiding the medicinal power of the elixirs to cleanse and replenish his physical body. As he healed, there was a faint sound coming from within his body like thunder. That was the sound of his physical body cleansing his limbs and bones. He was constantly recovering. Although Du Xiaofu's injuries were very serious in the void passage, he was recovering very quickly now. His entire body was glowing, faintly tinged with a purple-gold color. In just a few hours, Du Xiaofu's physical body had completely recovered. However, there were still some internal injuries in his body that were still recovering. Whoosh! After only one day, a golden light bloomed around Du Xiaofu's body. Accompanied by the purple-gold color, his physical body emitted a clanging sound. Every inch of Du Xiaofu's muscles and hair seemed to have come alive at this moment. They were gushing with light, as if there was a divine fire burning from the inside out of his body. Such a commotion also alarmed the surrounding members of the Wei family. Everyone opened their eyes and looked at Du Xiaofu. What's going on? What's happening to his body? Some of the younger members of the Wei family were astonished. The pressure that permeated through the void passage was domineering, sharp, and incomparably disdainful. It made their souls tremble. He's not an ordinary person. He's too strong. He's so strong that I can't see through him at all. Such a person must have an extraordinary background. The white-haired elder of the Wei family said, his face shocked and solemn. He had lived for a long time and had seen many things and met many people. His eyesight wasn't bad, and he could tell that the scarred man was no ordinary person. Perhaps he's also a supreme genius of this world. After a moment, the old man said these words. The young members of the Wei family looked at the golden figure with shock, yearning, and envy in their eyes. Inside the void passage, Du Xiaofu's body was surrounded by a dazzling golden light. His physical body was trembling, and a very powerful aura rushed out. The power it brought was astonishing, and it made the members of the Wei family want to prostrate themselves in worship. However, this pressure didn't last for long. Du Xiaofu opened his eyes. Golden light shot out from his eyes, and the resplendent golden light around him turned into golden talismans and secret runes, which were absorbed into his body. Crack! Du Xiaofu stood up. His body crackled like clangs, and his aura shook the void. Such an invisible style made the hearts of the Wei family members tremble. He's recovering so quickly. It seems like he's already fully recovered. The Wei family members were shocked. When they first saw Du Xiaofu, he was still seriously injured, but in just a day and a night, he had already recovered. This speed of recovery was simply inconceivable, like a miracle. Let's leave this place first. You can slowly recover along the way, and I'll travel with you. Du Xiaofu said to the Wei family members. He had already fully recovered, but he had to help the Buddha to the west. Although his injuries were all healed, the Wei family members had only recovered a little. In any case, they were extremely unfamiliar with this place, so they might as well travel together and learn more about it. The Wei family members nodded and followed Du Xiaofu. They were naturally very grateful that such an expert was willing to take them on another journey. I've only just entered the Heavenly Devil battlefield, so I don't know much about it. Can you tell me about the general situation here? On the way, Du Xiaofu slowed down and asked the Wei family members, wanting to understand the general situation here. So Mr. Qiao has only just entered the Heavenly Devil battlefield. The white-haired old man from the Wei family was very enthusiastic, and immediately told him everything he knew about the Heavenly Devil battlefield. The Heavenly Devil battlefield was very large, like a world of its own. It was the main battlefield of the great ancient calamity, so there were dangers at every step. There were many ancient formations, and demons and demonic monsters that could appear at any time. However, there were also many great opportunities here, and many disputes. Every time a treasure appeared, or an ancient inheritance emerged, there would be fierce competition, and various factions would clash fiercely. Chapter 1890. Within the Heavenly Devil battlefield, there were several mysterious places that ordinary beings didn't dare to enter. Kong Sansi, Zhou Xiaoluo, Mo Runan, Sima Muhan, Heng Luan, Void Spirit, Yen Lihan, Qi Jiajun, and others from the 9 great families. Long from the dragons, Feng Chao, Feng Han, and Huan Ling from the phoenix race. Jialo Jueyu, Jialo Kaling, and Jialo Juekong from the golden-winged Great Peng race. There are also the desolate nation's 18 heavenly generals, Du Yunlong, Mo Tianshao, Thunderhawk King, Mia Meng King, and others. These supreme geniuses of the younger generation illuminate the Heavenly Devil battlefield, and their fame surpasses many of the older generation. The Wei clan patriarch's heart trembled. These youths were too terrifying. They were all supreme geniuses, as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. There are also some pure-blooded descendants of powerful beast races from the beast region. Rumor has it that there are some disciples from the central province's Tianwu Academy. There are also several powerful demons from the demon world, especially the fire cloud evil god Dugu Fenshin, the dark hell emperor Ming Yao, the great snow mountain successor Lian Qingrong, the heavenly fiend Yelu Han, and the undying spirit demon Dongfang Qingmu. These fellows have mysterious origins. They aren't from the 9 great families, the phoenix race, the dragon's race, the golden-winged Great Peng race, or the desolate nation's other supreme geniuses. They are all extremely powerful. They've all entered. They probably haven't been idle during this time. I wonder what level they've reached. Hearing the Wei clan patriarch's words, Du Xiaofu pondered for a moment. He had interacted with these fellows in the divine domain. During this time, for the opening of the Heavenly Devil battlefield, Du Xiaofu had probably been idle. His strength and cultivation had definitely improved. And in Du Xiaofu's heart, the one he was most concerned about was the devil religion's moksha. Last time, he had narrowly defeated him. When the Heavenly Devil battlefield opened, he would definitely enter. He didn't know what level he had reached. Is there any news about someone called Du Xiaojing? As he pondered, Du Xiaofu asked. His younger sister, Xiaojing, was probably in the Heavenly Devil battlefield as well. I haven't heard anything about it. With our level of cultivation, it's impossible for us to come into contact with those people. However, I've heard that the dragons, legalism, and some experts from the school of vertical and horizontal are looking for the desolate country's demon king, Du Xiaofu. They've also attacked the desolate country's people. However, the desolate country seems to have the help of the school of Moism, the school of Yin Yang, the school of agriculture, and the golden-winged great rocks. The school of legalism doesn't seem to have any advantage over them. Wei Clan's Grand Master looked a little embarrassed. Presumably, the Du Xiaojing that Mr. Chiao was asking about was no ordinary person. Although he had lived for a long time, the level of those people was too high for him to come into contact with. Everything he knew was just hearsay. Du Xiaofu's expression changed slightly without leaving a trace. With the level of cultivation of these people from the Wei clan, it was likely that they wouldn't be able to come into contact with more people. However, even though it was hearsay, there was no smoke without fire. Du Xiaofu wasn't surprised. The legalism, school of vertical and horizontal, dragons, and the others had been thinking about him all this time. They were planning to deal with the desolate country in the heavenly devil battlefield. Is the Du Xiaojing that Mr. Chiao asked about just now the Du Xiaojing? Is she the sister of the legendary central desolate country's rock emperor, the demon king, Du Xiaofu's twin sister? However, it said that she has always been practicing legalism, Wei Jiejia said. She had heard many rumors when she was in the Wei clan. That's right. Du Xiaofu nodded. It's a pity that our level of cultivation is too low. We can't come into contact with those supreme geniuses, Wei Jiejia said apologetically. However, she kept looking curiously at Du Xiaofu. Those supreme geniuses are very strong. However, I'm sure that with Mr. Chiao's talent and strength, you'll be able to contend with them. I'm afraid that it won't be long before Mr. Chiao's name becomes famous in the heavenly devil battlefield and shakes the world. Wei clan's Grand Elder said. He had been carefully observing Du Xiaofu's expression. It was as if he was desperately hoping that he could guess something. Perhaps we'll have a chance to fight them. What long air, nether demon, fire cloud evil god, I'll definitely defeat them all. Du Xiaofu laughed. The scar at the corner of his eye trembled. His laughter was filled with heroism and confidence. Let's go. As his laughter reverberated, Du Xiaofu's figure had already swept forward. Can he really defeat the dragons, long air, fire cloud evil god, Duga Fenshin, and dark hell emperor, nether demon? One of the Wei clan's youths asked. His eyes were filled with shock and some doubt. Although they had personally witnessed Mr. Chiao's strength and the experts from the school of vertical and horizontal couldn't even withstand a single blow, long air, fire cloud evil god, Duga Fenshin, and the others were godlike existences in their eyes. They were the strongest supreme geniuses of the younger generation. Even the experts of the older generation would be defeated by them. Could this Mr. Chiao really defeat them, or was he just boasting? This Mr. Chiao is unfathomable. Even if he can't defeat them, he's still a supreme genius of the younger generation. The Wei clan's Grand Master whispered to the Wei clan's youths behind him. All of you must be respectful and never offend this Mr. Chiao. If you have the opportunity to receive a few pointers from him, then our Wei clan will definitely benefit greatly in the future. The group continued on their journey. Du Xiaofu inquired about some of the directions within the heavenly devil battlefield. He was currently only at the edge of the heavenly devil battlefield that was close to the outer region. The various major forces had already set out towards the depths. The treasures and benefits that would appear there would naturally be greater. Of course, the danger factor would also be higher. Du Xiaofu also set out towards the depths of the heavenly devil battlefield. He wanted to search for the people from the desolate country. His father, Du Tingxian, second brother, Du Yunlong, eldest sister, Du Xiaoman, and eldest brother, Zhen Qingchun, the 18 celestial guards, Mo Tianshao, and the Thunderhawk King should have already set out towards the depths of the heavenly devil battlefield. With their tempers and personalities, they would definitely not let go of the opportunity to compete with the supreme geniuses of the age. Du Xiaofu and the rest of the Wei clan had a rather peaceful journey. They only encountered 3 groups of demonic monsters that were of average strength. In the end, they were all slain by the group. If you encounter anyone else, you have to be a little more patient. In the Heavenly Devil battlefield, you still don't have the qualifications to compete for anything. Everything will depend on your luck. The Wei Clan's Grand Master advised the Wei Clan's youths. He had seen too many experts of the younger generation in the Heavenly Devil battlefield this time. Only then did he know that the Wei Clan's youths, who could look down on their peers on Azure Cloud Island, were completely inadequate in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. Even a genius like Mu Jianchen of the Saiman Sword sect would be overshadowed. We must become experts. However, a few of the Wei Clan's youths were not discouraged. Instead, they rubbed their palms together and were excited. They wanted to find opportunities in the Heavenly Devil battlefield and become experts one day and shake the world. Hearing the words of the Wei Clan's youths behind him, Du Xiaofu muttered to himself, "I'm looking forward to seeing if anyone below the Saint Realm can be swept away by me." Golden light gushed out of Du Xiaofu's eyes as they shone brightly. Taking advantage of the fact that the Saint Realm cultivators were still unable to enter the Heavenly Devil battlefield, Du Xiaofu wanted to make a clean sweep of the Heavenly Devil battlefield. He wanted to verify his current true strength and lay the foundation for stepping into the Saint Realm in the future. Chapter 1891. As they flew, the mountains rose and fell. Powerful monsters roared from time to time. Ferocious birds flew across the sky with powerful cultivators on them. Their auras swept past the Wei Clan members, but they didn't sense Du Xiaofu's aura and left in disdain. With Du Xiaofu around, the Wei clansmen became bolder. They no longer hid themselves and tried to cover their tracks. Gradually, the number of people they encountered increased, but the number of demonic monsters decreased. In the end, they couldn't even see a trace of them. There seems to be a small town up ahead. Du Xiaofu stood in the air and looked around. There were buildings in front of them, but they couldn't be called a city. At most, they could be considered a small town. It's not strange. There are many small towns here, all of them left behind from ancient times. They're relatively intact. After the Heavenly Devil battlefield opened, these places became temporary strongholds for people to exchange information and trade spiritual medicines and treasures. It's said that there are also large ancient cities in the middle, but these places are all controlled by powerful forces, Wei Jiejia said to Du Xiaofu. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of wind breaking rang out in the sky. A huge shadow appeared, as if a huge dark cloud was covering the sky. It was a huge bird with a pair of frightening eyes. Its wingspan was over 100 feet, and it was obvious that it was not at its largest size. Cyan Light Demonic Eagle. Du Xiaofu looked up. This was a Cyan Light Demonic Eagle at the peak of the Beast Emperor realm. It was not a match among the monsters, but it was still ranked on the Heavenly Beast ranking. However, this Cyan Light Demonic Eagle key was somewhat lacking compared to the Silver-Winged Demonic Eagle and the Thunderhawk King bloodline. Therefore, Du Xiaofu only glanced at it indifferently. A Cyan Light Demonic Eagle of this level was really unattractive in Du Xiaofu's eyes. Wei Hantong, are you also going to participate in the mercenary selection? But didn't your Wei clan send a lot of people? Why are there only a few of you left? Don't tell me all of you were killed. It seems like the Wei clan is going to decline in the future. There was a group of several dozen people on the Cyan Light Demonic Eagle. The one leading the group was an old man whose appearance and aura were similar to the Wei family's old Master Wei. He laughed loudly as he recognized the people from the Wei family. They were obviously acquaintances. Gu Lao San, your Gu family is nothing in the Heavenly Devil battlefield, right? Grand Master Wei looked at the old man on the bird with an ugly expression. Although he didn't look like an enemy, there wasn't much of a smile on his face. After this trip, my Gu family will no longer be the Gu family of the past. The old man on the bird didn't seem to care about old Master Wei's words. He laughed heartily and left, riding the bird towards the small town ahead. He's from the Gu family, another family on Qingyun Island. We've embarrassed ourselves in front of Mr. Qiao, Wei Jiejia said to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu didn't mind. It seemed that the Wei clan and the Gu family were competitors, just like the Du, Yi, and Bai families in Stone City. Humph, the Gu family must have obtained some treasure to be so arrogant. They don't know that Jiejia has also obtained a great treasure. When the time comes, they'll know that our Wei clan is the #1 family on Qingyun Island. Some of the people from the Wei clan gritted their teeth when they heard the old man from the Gu family. This time, the Wei clan had indeed lost many of their descendants, all of whom were blood relatives. Now that Gu Laosen mentioned it, they naturally felt uncomfortable. Du Xiaofu continued onwards, and the surrounding terrain gradually leveled out. He was getting closer and closer to the town, and there were many green plants in the surroundings, giving off a feeling of vitality. It was unlike most places in the Heavenly Demon battlefield, which made Du Xiaofu inwardly feel surprised. There are many places with greenery. It's said that there's a place called Heavenly Yu Mountain, one of the few mysterious places in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. It's rumored that there are towering trees everywhere, countless spiritual herbs, and spiritual birds and beasts. It's never been tainted by evil demons. Unfortunately, it's very mysterious. Not only can it not be found, it's also impossible for living beings to set foot there, Wei Jiejia said. These were just rumors in the Heavenly Devil battlefield, and she didn't know much about it. Du Xiaofu smiled. If such a place really existed, it was only a matter of time before people set foot there. Woo! As they approached the small town, many monsters appeared, then took human form. There were also cultivators coming from all directions, all of whom entered the small town one by one. The small town was mottled and ancient. Although it was well preserved and rather intact, it had been a long time. Many places had collapsed, leaving behind dilapidated fences and dilapidated walls. Everyone entered the town. Although it couldn't be compared to the big cities outside, compared to what Du Xiaofu had seen in the past 2 days, the small town was already very lively. Many cultivators had gathered. Du Xiaofu sized up the ancient streets and alleys, estimating that there were thousands of people. He scanned with his mind, but there weren't too many experts. However, there were quite a number of honorable realm experts. Basically, martial honorables and 8-star talisman masters had brought many young disciples with them. On both sides of the street, there were also cultivators setting up simple stalls. I accidentally obtained a Dharma weapon in exchange for a few royal-grade healing elixirs. Refining materials, gold and copper, can be used to refine high-grade Dharma weapons in exchange for honorable-grade martial skills. Similar cries of hawking could be heard incessantly, and the streets were clamorous with noise and clamor. Don't miss this chance, I accidentally obtained an ancient cave abode. It must have been left behind by an ancient expert. Suddenly, such a voice entered Du Xiaofu's ears. Du Xiaofu looked in the direction of the voice. Right beside him, a lean burly man placed a tattered scroll in front of his stall. It looked really old, and he was loudly hawking. Seeing that Du Xiaofu was sizing it up, the lean burly man became even more spirited. He kept promoting, "Friend, you have good taste. You must be someone who knows what's good for you. I accidentally obtained this. Let me tell you a secret, this must be a treasure map. It contains the location of an ancient expert's residence. If you're fated to find it, you'll definitely be able to reach the heavens in a single step. It's a pity that my cultivation isn't high enough, and I don't have the luck. Right now, I can exchange it for an honorable grade elixir and a high-grade Dharma weapon." Hearing this, the eyes of the Wei clan's disciples lit up, and they carefully sized up the ancient scroll. Hee. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly and ignored them. He turned around and left with a smile. That scroll could not escape Du Xiaofu's eyes. It was just an old fake, and not an ancient treasure map at all. "Friend, don't go. Do you think it's too expensive? I see that you're fated. How about a Dharma weapon? What do you think? Don't go. How about a Tao weapon? I can't go any lower. Hey, a royal grade elixir. A candidate grade elixir, I'll give you a treasure map. How about that? Du Xiaofu ignored them and left. The young people of the Wei clan were still reluctant to leave, and they looked tempted. Chapter 1892. Blockhead, that's a fake. Old Master Wei was in a bad mood when he heard the disciples of the Wei family reprimand them. He wanted nothing more than to kick them a few times. Great-grandfather, there are people from the Gu family up ahead. One of the Wei family youths spoke up. He saw the Gu family disciple who had just entered the town before them. Thousands of people had gathered in a small square in front of them. The square, which wasn't very big, was packed and bustling. Not only that, but there were also powerful auras. Clearly, there were also the auras of many ferocious beasts. Du Xiaofu had also sensed it long ago. He stopped and looked around. Many cultivators had gathered. The noise was loud, and their auras were surging. Peak Nirvana revered martial artist. As Du Xiaofu probed with his mind, he narrowed his eyes. He could sense a vague aura sweeping the surroundings from the center of the crowd. It was actually a peak Nirvana martial saint. Such a cultivation was already the strongest in this small town. Those who want to go must be at least martial emperor realm. Talisman masters have priority. The requirements can be relaxed. When the time comes, the treasures we obtain will be distributed equally according to cultivation and contribution. A loud and clear voice came from the center of the crowd. It was mixed with profound energy, and was extremely penetrating. This is a mercenary selection. They're recruiting. Wei Jiejia said to Du Xiaofu, some people don't have enough strength to search for treasures, so they choose to form teams. It's like a mercenary group. If someone can pay the price, they won't refuse to serve others. Searching for treasures, Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. He was afraid that when the time came, the treasures would be taken by those with stronger cultivation. The purpose of these people's recruitment was probably to find cannon fodder. Out of the way, don't block the way. Right at this moment, someone shouted. More than 10 people rushed over in an extremely rude and unreasonable manner. What are you blocking the way for? A burly man in short sleeves with a strong body and bulging muscles swept a Wei family youth aside. He staggered to the ground with one hand. Are you bullying us? The young man from the Wei clan was enraged. He stood up from the ground and began to berate loudly. The faces of the surrounding Wei clan members also darkened, and some of the younger ones looked furious. Forget it, all of you are dismissed. Grandpa Wei pulled these youths back. Looking at the dozen or so people and sensing their auras, he couldn't reason with them. He told the youths of Wei family not to be impulsive and that they could only swallow this loss. After all, this was not Qinyun Island. The youths were indignant, but they also understood Old Master Wei's meaning. They could only suppress their anger and withdraw. After a rough assessment, they could already sense that these dozen or so people were not to be trifled with. So what if we bullied you? You don't know what's good for you. So what if we kill you? However, even though Old Master Wei had reprimanded the Wei family disciple, the muscular man in short sleeves had no intention of stopping. Instead, his interest was piqued. He stopped in his tracks and sneered again and again. Killing intent flashed through his eyes, and he didn't care about the Wei family disciple at all. Profound energy surged out of his hand as he swatted at the youth, intending to kill him on the spot. This burly man's cultivation was very strong. He was an early-stage martial venerable. If this Wei family disciple was hit by his casual attack, he would definitely be killed. Sir, you are going too far. The other party bullied them first, and now he wanted to kill them. Old Master Wei couldn't bear it anymore. With a flick of his sleeve, his figure flashed in front of the youth in an instant. He swatted out with one hand, and the two forces collided directly. Bang! A muffled sound rang out, and a strong gust of wind caused rune ripples to disperse. The mottled stone tiles on the ground cracked. The commotion was not small, and it attracted the attention of the surrounding people. Thump thump, both Old Master Wei and the burly man were forced back several steps at the same time. It was a draw. It's the Wei family. They are in trouble. The group of Gu family disciples who had gathered outside also saw the Wei family disciples. They were surprised and then went to the side to watch the show. Old Master Wei had not recovered from some of his injuries and was not at his peak. The burly man had also casually attacked and didn't use his full strength. If both of them died at their peak, they would be evenly matched. Oh, there is still a martial venerable here. The burly man stamped his foot and stopped his retreat. He looked at Old Master Wei in surprise, but then he sneered and said, "It seems that you are still injured. You dare to interfere with the people I want to kill? Old thing, you can go die yourself." Boom! As his voice fell, the burly man's aura trembled violently. A terrifying aura soared into the sky, and he was about to attack again. Old 14, forget it. Come back. At this moment, a low voice came from the center of the crowd. As this voice came out, the packed crowd automatically parted to reveal a small square in the center. There were no less than 300 or 400 people standing in the center of the small square. At the front were a dozen or so men and women of different appearances, but they didn't look too young. In the center was an old man who looked to be in his 50s. His shoulder-length hair was eye-catching, half black and half silver. His eyes were calm, as if there were no waves. It was obviously him who had spoken just now. Humph. Hearing that voice, the burly man snorted coldly at Old Master Wei. He withdrew his aura and said, "Consider yourself lucky today. If I see you again, I will not forgive you." With that, the burly man led the people behind him directly to the square. A sneak attack, isn't that a little underhanded? But at this moment, Du Xiaofu suddenly spoke. With a wave of his hand, an invisible wave swept out toward the Wei clan. Crackle crackle, in an instant, a dozen energy arrows appeared above the Wei clan's heads. Runes shone brightly and surged with killing intent. Then, they were annihilated and dissipated in the distorted space. That was close. Only then did the Wei clan's people, including Old Master Wei, realize that there was a fatal killing intent just now. If Mr. Qiao hadn't acted, they probably wouldn't even know how they died. If you want to sneak attack, then you will have to pay the price. A calm voice came from Du Xiaofu's mouth. At the same time, the hand he had just waved fell forward. An invisible wave immediately spread out in the air. Bang 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 bang, the speed was too fast. In just an instant, the burly man and the dozen or so others had no idea what was happening. Lightning flashed within their bodies, and then their bodies exploded. Their spirits were destroyed. In the end, they died without even knowing what had happened. Something interesting is about to happen. That man killed 14 of the Lushan 14 owls. He's in big trouble now. The crowd was in an uproar. There was a surge of qi, and the people who were clustered around immediately retreated. In the center of the square, the expressions of the dozen or so people at the front changed drastically. Waves of extremely extraordinary auras soared into the sky, shaking the void. "Brat, you're courting death." A cold glint appeared in the eyes of the 50-year-old man in the middle. A cold light shot out from his eyes. This old man in his 50s was the leader of the Lushan 14 owls. He was the one who secretly attacked just now. He wanted to establish his authority here so that the people around him would respect him in the future. However, that old man had never expected that he would be stopped by someone, and that his 14th brother would be killed. Chapter 1893. Mr. Qiao. The disciples of the Wei family immediately gathered around Du Xiaofu, their hearts still palpitating and their foreheads covered in cold sweat. They had almost been killed just now. Thinking about it now, they still felt their hair stand on end. The other party was too strong, so strong that they could take their lives without a sound. "Thank you, Mr. Qiao, for saving us again." Old Master Wei was very grateful, but looking at the old man and the dozen people with terrifying auras, his gaze was also very serious. He transmitted his voice into Du Xiaofu's ear. "These are the Lushan 14 owls, 14 sworn brothers. They are infamous in Wanzhou. Because they are treacherous, cunning, and very strong, even the big forces are not willing to provoke them easily. The Lushan 14 owls, huh? Since you've already paid the price, get lost," Du Xiaofu said. The strength of these people was not bad. They were all in the martial honorable realm. The strongest one was already at the peak of the Nirvana martial honorable realm. He was only one step away from the domain realm. Indeed, he was definitely an overlord in the continent. However, Du Xiaofu did not take it to heart. He was just too lazy to make a move. It was fine as long as these people did not provoke him. "Kid, are you talking to us?" Beside the leading old man, a tall middle-aged man stared straight at Du Xiaofu. His eyes were cold and murderous, and the corners of his eyes were twitching. "What, you want to fight? You can come and try," Du Xiaofu said calmly, looking straight at the middle-aged man. He did not have a good impression of these people. If they still wanted to provoke him, he did not mind killing them. "Kid, you're really tired of living." The tall middle-aged man finally could not take it anymore. A terrifying cold aura exploded from his body, wanting to freeze the surrounding space. Some of the cultivators around who were not strong enough instantly had frost appear in their eyes, so cold that their souls trembled. "Qi La." The middle-aged man attacked. He stomped his foot on the ground, and an extremely cold aura rushed out. As he rushed out, runes gathered in his hand, turning into a large ice blade that was about to distort the void. In an instant, it slashed towards Du Xiaofu. It was fierce and vicious, merciless and malicious. Under such an attack, wherever the ice saber passed, the ground of the square would be frozen until it cracked and turned into ice shards. An icy qi that made one's primordial spirit tremble permeated the void. This person was a peak primordial chaos martial venerable and was not far from becoming a nirvana martial venerable. Not many people present could compare to him. They were all trembling from the cold. Bing Xiao, the third brother of the Lushan 14 owls, cultivates a terrifying frost xian qi that can freeze xian qi and primordial spirit. Someone exclaimed and sucked in a breath of cold air for Du Xiaofu. They knew how powerful Bing Xiao was. He was an absolute killer whose name shook Wanzhou. "Qi La." The blade slashed down, cutting through the void. Ice runes filled the air. Under everyone's gaze, Du Xiaofu was directly cut into pieces by the energy ice saber. His body turned into ice shards, but then he disappeared into the void without any blood mist. "It's an afterimage." Someone with good eyesight exclaimed in surprise. He could tell that the figure that was cut into pieces was just an afterimage. At that moment, Bing Xiao's expression suddenly changed. He seemed to have felt something and wanted to turn back. However, it was too late. Du Xiaofu's figure appeared behind him. "Gotcha." The void distorted. Du Xiaofu stretched out his hand and curled his palm into a claw. He grabbed Bing Xiao's neck in disbelief. With a crisp crack, blood spurted out. Bing Xiao's head and neck had been separated. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. His pupils constricted. Then, his body and head turned into a blood mist at the same time. The speed was too fast. Before anyone could react, Bing Xiao, who was a peak primordial chaos martial venerable, had been killed. The whole square was silent. Rows of mouths were agape in shock. a peak primordial chaos martial venerable was killed in an instant. The remaining members of the Lushan 14 Owls looked at each other in dismay. Then, they were shocked. The cold eyes of the leader, who was in his 50s, suddenly twitched. At that moment, the Lushan 14 Owls realized that they had offended someone they should not have. This time, they had kicked a steel plate. Oh no! Run! The leader, who was in his 50s, shouted. In an instant, he came back to his senses. The seemingly young man in front of them was someone they could not afford to offend. To be able to kill Bing Xiao in an instant, he was at least in the domain realm. Even if all of them worked together, they would not be a match for him. Judging from his ferocious way of killing, he was definitely not someone to be trifled with. Now that they had offended him, they would definitely not have a good ending. Swoosh, swoosh, dozens of figures flew out. Their faces were filled with shock as they wanted to leave. They did not dare to stay any longer. In the face of absolute strength, they could only escape. Since you have offended me, you can all go to hell. Du Xiaofu's eyes were filled with coldness. Suddenly, a purple flame flashed across his eyes. Whoosh, 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 suddenly, the dozens of figures who had just leaped into the air stopped in the void. Their eyes were filled with shock as their bodies cracked. Their bodies cracked, and purple light overflowed from their bodies, emitting a dazzling light. Bang, 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 dozens of muffled sounds exploded in the void. The bodies of the Lushan 14 Owls exploded. Billowing purple flames gushed out from their bodies, burning the void. The purple runes were annihilated in the void like purple fireworks. However, they had taken the lives of the Lushan 14 Owls. Not even their bones were left. The Lushan 14 Owls, who were famous in Wanzhou, dozens of martial honorables, and a vicious person who was only a step away from the domain realm, were all killed in a clean manner. The way they were killed sent chills down the spines of the living beings around them. Gulp, gulp, after being stunned for a moment, the sound of people swallowing their saliva could be heard. In the square, the 300 to 400 figures were surging with auras like humans. They originally wanted to stand together with the Lushan 14 Owls, but at that moment, they were all trembling with fear. They were afraid that they would follow in the footsteps of the Lushan 14 Owls. Who is he? He doesn't seem very old. Is he a genius? Someone asked in a low voice. They were sizing up Du Xiaofu from afar, trying to guess his identity. Only those supreme geniuses could have such strength and cultivation at such a young age. Everyone from House Wei was equally shocked and agitated. Mr. Qiao's strength had once again exceeded their expectations. He was an out-and-out Heaven's Chosen. It was no wonder that he was so bold as to challenge all the supremes of Heaven's Chosen in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. He had the capital to back up his confidence, and was also a ruthless killer. He was not to be trifled with. Wei Zhejia's red lips were also agape in shock. She had never thought that the person she had casually helped would be such a powerful person, such a genius. Roar, suddenly, a dragon's roar rang out like thunder. The sound caused the small town to tremble, breaking the dead silence in the town square. Chapter 1894. Dozens of figures appeared in the sky outside the small town. The most eye-catching one was a 1,000-meter-long white flood dragon in the middle. It gave off a chilling aura as it flew through the air, half of its body hidden in the clouds. It was a shocking sight. On the head of the white flood dragon was a handsome middle-aged man in his 40s. He wore a loose robe and had shoulder-length black hair. A strange rune flickered on his forehead. His eyes were bright, proud, and profound. That's a frost flood dragon, a branch of the dragons. It can't be used as a mount. Could it be that the dragons are here? Those figures came with the huge flood dragon. Their auras were powerful, and their eyes shone with ferocious light. Most of them were beast men, and they exuded a powerful pressure. The handsome middle-aged man standing on the head of the flood dragon made the hearts of those who looked at him tremble. It's the dragons. Someone confirmed that it was the dragon race that came, trembling in fear. That was a legendary powerful race. What are the dragons doing here in this small town? Many people were surprised. What could catch the eyes of the dragons in a small town like this? Those big factions and races had long since gone to fight for great opportunities and treasures. 2 Initial Ascension, 1 Sealed Domain. Du Xiaofu raised his head slightly and narrowed his eyes. Most of those people were beastmen, and there were 2 Initial Ascension Beast Realm cultivators. The middle-aged man on the Frost Flood Dragon was a Sealed Domain Realm cultivator. He was not weak, and the remaining dozens were not ordinary either. Compared to such a group of experts, the Lushan 14 Owls was nothing. The dozens of figures shone brightly, like stars floating in the sky. Their auras suppressed the void. The people of the small town were terrified. None of them could afford to offend such experts. The dozens of people hovered in the void, sensing the bloody killing intent that had filled the small square. They only glanced at it indifferently, not paying it any attention. Everyone, listen up. As long as someone finds out about the people from the desolate nation and reports it to the dragons, they will be able to choose any ancient cultivation technique, domain-level martial technique, or high-grade celestial weapon. A young woman in a red robe with a lithe figure walked forward and stood in the air. Her slender legs were half exposed, and her chest was slightly white. She was beautiful and alluring, but she also carried a kind of coldness. Her clear voice reverberated in every corner of the town. Whoever can provide information about the Demon King Du Xiaofu will be able to obtain a sacred artifact and an ancient inheritance from the dragons. If you're looking for me, you can't beat my price. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. He did not expect that the first person he met in the heavenly devil battlefield would be someone who issued a bounty for him. The price was not low at all. It seemed like the dragons were really concerned about him. A trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. Du Xiaofu did not plan to be polite to the dragons. The dragons are issuing bounties everywhere. They want to deal with the desolate nation. Many of the dragons were killed by the desolate nation. Dragon 9, Dragon 8, and the others died in the hands of the Demon King Du Xiaofu. In the Divine Domain, Dragon 3 and the others also died in the hands of the Demon King Du Xiaofu. This kind of enmity cannot be resolved. It is said that the dragon's terrifying Dragon 2 has already entered and is looking for the Demon King Du Xiaofu everywhere. Everyone was secretly discussing and whispering. It turned out that the experts from the dragons were here to look for the people from the desolate nation. The beautiful young woman stood in the void, emitting a dazzling light. There was a mysterious and powerful aura circulating around her. It was the aura of the dragons. It was extraordinary and intimidating. The beautiful young woman's expression was calm. Her eyes flashed brilliantly, and there was an invisible power that gradually rose. It made people's souls tremble and their hearts palpitate, making them want to kneel down. But if anyone has information about the people from the desolate nation and does not tell us, then you will have to bear the consequences. As soon as she finished speaking, the beautiful young woman's gaze swept across the small town. The invisible power made the people below tremble. Some of the beasts immediately prostrated themselves and reverted to their original forms. This kind of power was too shocking. It made the small town silent. Everyone lowered their heads and did not dare to raise them. The dragon race sure is awe-inspiring. Suddenly, a voice reverberated in the empty space of the small town, causing the faces of the dozens of experts from the dragon tribe to change. On top of the Frost Jiao dragon's head, the handsome middle-aged man's eyes shot out a divine light. When the voice reached Du Xiaofu's ears, it also made Du Xiaofu look in the direction of the voice. The voice was very familiar to Du Xiaofu. It was too familiar. As Du Xiaofu looked in the direction of the voice, a familiar figure appeared in the void. It was a middle-aged man. His wretched face and eyes did not change much, but it did not make people feel uncomfortable. Instead, it had a natural charm. It's brother Qin Chun. Joy flashed in Du Xiaofu's eyes as he smiled. The figure in front of him was none other than his elder brother, the child of the sacred array, Jin Qin Chun. Sacred array child Jin Qin Chun. On top of the frost Jiao dragon, the handsome middle-aged man's robe swayed as his voice slowly sounded. It's the desolate nation's sacred array child Jin Qin Chun. He's a big shot in the desolate nation. It's rumored that the sacred array child Jin Qin Chun is the elder brother of the demon king Du Xiaofu. The people in the small town, who were originally trembling, were now in an uproar. Everyone knew that there would be a big show to watch. The desolate nation's sacred array child Jin Qin Chun had come. A big battle was inevitable. It's the desolate nation's sacred array child Jin Qin Chun. It's rumored that his attainments in the art of formations are terrifying. The six-will blood-killing array can kill everything. Wei Jiejia said. She looked at the figure in the void. Her eyes flickered with yearning. She cultivated both martial arts and talisman arts. As a talisman master, she had heard of the legend of the sacred array child Jin Qin Chun. In the void, Jin Qin Chun suddenly lowered his gaze and looked at Wei Jiejia. There was a flash of surprise in his eyes. Long Fun, you mixed-blood dragons really don't want to give up. Jin Qin Chun raised his eyebrows. Then, he looked at the middle-aged man in the loose robes on the back of the ice dragon. His inverted triangular eyes were still as wretched as ever. Since you dared to come, don't leave. If you die, the desolate nation will be very lively. Long Fen said. His eyes were cold. As his voice fell, his expression suddenly turned cold. His arms shook and a gushing aura burst out from his body. Roar, a terrifying aura spread out. There was a faint shadow of a crimson fire dragon lingering around his body. The surrounding living creatures held their breaths. They were shocked to find that the profound chi in their bodies was blocked by that terrifying aura. Their primordial spirits also seemed to be on fire. That's a true descendant of the dragons. He's a beast region expert. Someone exclaimed. A martial region expert of the dragons was terrifying. Chapter 1895. Wu, when Long Fen unleashed his aura, the dozens of dragons around him released their terrifying auras at the same time. Some of them roared like thunder, and two of them had the most powerful auras. Jin Qin Chun only smiled faintly when he sensed the dozens of terrifying auras. He glanced at Long Fen and the others with his inverted triangular eyes and said, "With just you guys? I'm afraid it's not enough. You're too weak. Listen to my orders. Kill Jin Qin Chun with all your might. Don't let him set up the formation." Long Fen raised his gaze as his cold voice reverberated throughout the small town. It carried a terrifying killing intent like a dragon's roar. Jin Qin Chun was a master of formations. Once he set up a talisman formation, it would be difficult to deal with him. Boom! As Long Fen's voice rang out, the entire space of the small town instantly tensed up and froze. The auras of the dozens of figures rose into the sky. Wu, in an instant, huge flood dragons and all kinds of ferocious beasts occupied the space. Winds rose and clouds surged. The earth trembled and roared like thunder. Waves of terrifying might and light soared into the sky. You have more people, but it's useless. Unfortunately, it won't be my turn to make a move. What a pity. Looking at those terrifying figures, Jin Qingchuan's face carried a smile that was not a smile. There was also a look of regret on his face. He did not have any intention of taking action. There's no need for Brother Qingchun to make a move with these small fries. A voice suddenly came from afar and echoed in the void. When the last word fell, 18 invisible sharp auras spread out and froze this part of the world. Whoosh whoosh. The sound of wind breaking resounded. A large group of rainbow figures broke through the air and appeared above the void like lightning. Boom! Boom! The space trembled invisibly. A total of 18 rays of light retracted as 18 men descended. 18 invisible energy fluctuations were like 18 javelins on the ground, giving off a sharp feeling. All 18 men gave off the feeling of a ferocious beast. The sharp aura that filled their bodies for no reason was accompanied by a bloody stench. It was impossible for such an aura to exist without experiencing bloody slaughter. It was enough to prove that these 18 men had been tempered by killing along the way. All eyes fell on the 18 young men, and their hair stood on end. 18 heavenly generals. On top of the enormous ice dragon head, when he saw the 18 tall and straight figures and felt the 18 terrifying auras, Long Fen's gaze fiercely trembled. Heavens, it's the desolate country's 18 heavenly guards. In the plaza below, Wei Jiajia's delicate face trembled. She had never seen those 18 men before, but she had heard countless legends about them. They were the strongest weapons of the world meeting, and their murderous reputation had long since shaken the 3 continents and Kyushu. None of you are idle. Du Xiaofu stood there indifferently. He raised his head and looked at the 18 men who had descended. A smile appeared on his face. After not seeing them for so long, the auras of these 18 fellows had become much stronger. 18 men were flying in the air. In the middle was a tall and slender man in a black robe. Under his bangs, his eyes were sharp. He was Yi Piaoling, the leader of the World Society's 18 heavenly guards. Kill! Yi Piaoling spoke. Her sharp eyes were filled with undisguised killing intent. She was cold and merciless. Kill! Beside Yi Piaoling, a beast-like man in a long robe summoned a battle spear and held it in his hand. A terrifying aura burst out from it. It was the savage battle spear, and it directly slashed towards the dragon race man. Kill, leave no one alive. One figure after another charged forward like lightning. Their killing intent was swift and fierce. Waves of aura shook the void. It was as if 18 bolts of lightning had swept into the dragon's formation and started a massacre. Not good, it's the 18 heavenly generals. Retreat! Long Fen shouted. The 18 heavenly generals' fierce reputation had long been known. They were 18 killing gods, each stronger than the last. At this moment, even as one of the dragon's elders, he was trembling in fear. However, it was too late for Long Fen to retreat. The 18 heavenly generals were so fierce that they had already charged forward. Awu, in an instant, some beasts were killed, and some dragons were directly shattered. Bastards, I'm not done with you. Long Fen was furious. His aura surged out, and flames seeped out of the void. In his hand, something was quietly crushed without leaving a trace. A cold sneer flashed across his eyes. Awu! The ice dragon under Long Fen's feet roared, shaking the void until it trembled. The cold air froze the void. Die! Yi Piaoling's figure appeared. Faint black profound chi filled the air with runes, resisting the corrosion of the cold air. Her sword soared through the sky, piercing through the void, and directly slashed at the enormous ice dragon. Yi Piaoling, let me see if you're really as powerful as the rumors say. Long Fen shouted. His entire body was covered in flames, and a dragon's might spread out to protect his body. With a wave of his hand, he condensed a blazing fire dragon and blocked the sword light with a roar. However, the fire dragon only blocked it for an instant before it was shattered and annihilated by the sword light. The sword light pierced through the air and directly slashed at the ice dragon's head. A monstrous blood mist poured out. The huge dragon's head was shattered, and its beast soul was also shattered. Bastard! Long Fen's figure flew away from the top of his mount's head. His eyes glowed, and his killing intent surged. He watched as his mount was killed, but he didn't stop it. One could imagine how he felt. He no longer held back his sealed domain realm aura, and his dragon's might surged. Go all out. Yi Piaoling stepped into the air, holding the sword in her right hand and standing with her left hand behind her back. She was calm and fierce, and the invisible bloody aura spread out from her body. She was iron-blooded and cold, like a god of death. In an instant, a terrifying dragon's might spread out, and a dragon's roar filled the sky. Long Fun turned into a huge fire dragon and swooped down from the void. His aura was monstrous, and he unleashed his strongest dragon's might to attack Yi Piaoling. Too strong. The creatures in the town were shocked. Such a powerful dragon was too terrifying. As expected of one of the supreme beast clans. Yi Piaoling didn't move, but faint black profound chi surged around her. The sword in her hand let out a sonorous sound of wind and thunder. A new aura spread out from her body, and a terrifying pressure filled the air. The fire dragon swooped down, and the huge dragon's eyes suddenly shrank. Long Fun felt the aura on Yi Piaoling's body and revealed a shocked expression under the pressure. Oh no, he's reached the peak of the Nirvana realm. Long Fun couldn't believe it. At this moment, he felt the aura of the peak of the Nirvana realm from Yi Piaoling's body. Yi Piaoling was probably not far from the Nirvana realm. Long Fun was at the peak of the sealed domain realm. As an elder of the dragons and a descendant of the true dragon, he didn't care about cultivators at the greater domain realm. However, Yi Piaoling was a supreme Nirvana realm cultivator at the peak of the Nirvana realm. She was infamous. Go all out. The arrow was already knocked on the bow, and it had to be released. Long Fun shouted, and the fire dragon burned. Runes soared into the sky, and the dragon's claws tore through the void and shook the world. At this point, Long Fun felt fear. He wanted to go all out and stall for time while waiting for strong reinforcements. When the time came, he would be able to capture the 18 heavenly generals' guards and Jin Qingchun in one fell swoop. This would be a huge blow to the desolate country. Kill. Yi Piaoling attacked. The huge fire dragon swooped down. The figure seemed very small, but there was a light that shot into the sky like the sun. He swung the sword in his hand, and a sword light pierced through the void. The sword light was shocking and fierce. The dragon and the man fought. After one round, Long Fun roared and screamed. One of his dragon claws was cut off, and dragon blood flowed. He was seriously injured. The fire dragon soared into the sky and erupted with dragon power. Long Fun quickly retreated. Yi Piaoling was stronger than he had imagined. You can't escape. Yi Piaoling's thin lips parted slightly. His figure strangely appeared above Long Fun's head. The faint black Xian Qi in his body covered the world, and a strong pressure confined the void. He waved his hand, and the sword swooped down and pierced through Long Fun's head. Qi La, the sword sank between Long Fun's eyebrows. The surrounding runes exploded in blazing flames, and the surrounding void cracked. You can't escape either. Don't even think about escaping. Long Fun's ferocious head had a look of despair. The sword destroyed his dragon soul. His dragon pupils shrank, and he couldn't close his eyes. He died. Rumble, at the same time, the other two beast region cultivators were also killed by Chen Guyu, Silver Fox, and the others. There was no suspense in this battle. No matter how the dozens of dragons roared and fought with their lives, or how they used their monstrous beast energy, they couldn't resist the slaughter of the 18 celestial generals. None of the dozens of dragons escaped. They were all killed, and their souls were destroyed. Kill them all. A man in a blue and white robe landed beside Yi Piaoling. He was tall and sturdy, like the incarnation of a ferocious beast. He was Qin Guyu. Just now, the savage spear had directly pierced through the body of a beast region cultivator. He was even more ferocious than a ferocious beast. Whoosh whoosh, a group of young men landed beside Qin Guyu. Waves of fierce and bloody aura surged out. Their eyes were sharp and fierce. They killed dozens of dragons without even blinking. Looking up at the 18 men, there seemed to be some kind of magic that made the blood in the bodies of the surrounding creatures tremble for no reason. Is this the power of the 18 celestial generals? They're too strong. As expected of the desolate country's weapon. You can see how strong the desolate country is just by looking at the 18 celestial generals. No wonder the desolate country dares to face the dragons. School of vertical and horizontal and legalism. Geniuses gather and supreme beings are everywhere. The 18 tall and fierce figures and their fierce auras shook the hearts of the people. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the 18 men. Is there anyone else coming? However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu's eyes narrowed slightly as he stared at the void before him. What a waste! What a waste! At least leave some beast souls for me. Zhen Qingchun looked at the bloody corpses around him and felt his heart ache. If the dragon's beast souls were refined by the 6 wheels blood kill array, they could strengthen the 6 wheels blood kill array. Soon after, Zhen Qingchun landed on the ground. He walked in front of Du Xiaofu in front of quite a number of astonished gazes from all around. His gaze swept over Du Xiaofu. After which, he sized up Wei Jiejie and said, "Little girl, are you a symbol master?" Chapter 1896. Wei Jiejie was already nervous enough when the legendary sacred array child Zhen Qingchun suddenly appeared beside her. Now that she was asked a question, she became even more excited. But after that, Wei Jiejie calmed his feelings and bowed before he said, "Senior, I mainly cultivate formations in the Tao of talismans and minor in alchemy. Set up your strongest formation for me to see," said Zhen Qingchun. Wei Jiejie was stunned. The surrounding disciples of the Wei clan, including Old Master Wei, were also puzzled. But in front of such a legendary figure, they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. "Then I'll embarrass myself. Please advise me, senior." Wei Jiejie's hand seals were already forming. As a talisman master, it was a rare opportunity to face such a great formation master. Profound qi surged, and the power of the origin spirit surged. As Wei Jiejie's hand seals formed, the surrounding space suddenly surged and trembled slightly. Boom! In an instant, formation flags formed in Wei Jiejie's slender hands. Runes flickered, and light soared into the sky, shaking heaven and earth. Wei Jiejie's face suddenly turned pale. She was doing her best, gritting her teeth as she tried to form a 7-star Prometha-level formation. Dazzling formation flags rushed into the sky, about to form a formation amidst the wind and clouds. Not bad at all. Looking at the formation flags, a smile appeared on Zhen Qingchun's face. With a wave of his hand, runes shot into the sky and landed on the formation flags. They directly dissolved the formation flags, and they scattered in the sky like fireworks. With the formation flags dissolved, Wei Jiejie's pale face regained some color, but there was deep shock on her delicate face. The sacred array child dissolved her formation flags with just a wave of his hand. This level of attainment was not something she could compare to. "Little girl, what's your name?" Looking at Wei Jiejie, Zhen Qingchun carefully sized her up as if he had seen a treasure. "Junior is Wei Jiejie, from Shang Province's Qingyun Island," replied Wei Jiejie. "Are you willing to become my disciple and cultivate with me?" asked Zhen Qingchun. Wei Jiejie's origin spirit was exceptionally powerful, and she was also talented in formations. He wanted to take her in as his disciple. But when they heard Zhen Qingchun's words, the disciples of the Wei clan, Old Master Wei, and the others all trembled. They were so shocked that they couldn't recover. The sacred array child Zhen Qingchun, desolate country's demon king, Du Xiaofu's elder brother. The desolate country's demon king. Kyushu, and the Wei country, the demon king of the desolate Kyushu clan. Jia greets master. With trembling eyes, Wei Jia knelt down and respectfully kowtowed to Zhen Qingchun 3 times. How could she not be willing to accept such an array formation as a disciple? This was something that she could only wish for. The heavens bless our Wei clan. Old Master Wei cried. This was the Wei clan's great fortune. From now on, the Wei clan might not reach the heavens in a single bound, but their status would rise with the tide. Even the Sa-Meng Sword Sect, Hahuan School, Sun Moon Sect, Supporting Star Sect, and other first-rate forces in Shang Province all had close ties with the desolate country. Given Zhen Qingchuan's status in the desolate nation and the fact that Wei Jia was his disciple, the Wei clan would have a powerful backer in the entire Shang prefecture. How did the Wei clan produce Wei Jia? Our Gu clan also has an extraordinary talisman master. However, compared to the people from the Gu clan not far away, Third Elder Gu's face twitched when he saw that Wei Jia from the Wei clan had become the disciple of the child of the sacred array, Zhen Qingchun. He hated that a member of the Gu clan had become the disciple of the child of the sacred array. Good. Zhen Qingchun laughed and called out 3 times. He immediately helped Wei Jia up with a smile. Congratulations, brother Qingchun. Yi Piaoling, Qian Guyu, and the others went up to congratulate him. The invisible smell of blood made Wei Jia's delicate body tremble. The true experts of the Dragon clan should be coming soon. Zhen Qingchuan's expression became more serious as he looked toward the end of the void. The dragons have a true expert coming. Hearing this, Yi Piaoling, Qian Guyu, and Silver Fox's eyes rippled. They're already here. Zhen Qingchun said. Boom! Boom! At that moment, the void in front of them trembled for no reason as if it had exploded. A hazy figure descended, bringing with it rolling clouds. A vast pressure descended at the same time, making people want to kneel down and kowtow. The beast souls of the beasts trembled for no reason and prostrated. The hazy figure appeared, becoming more and more dazzling. The light was as dazzling as the sun. A majestic old man appeared in the light. A terrifying pressure spread out like a peerless dragon, bringing with it an unparalleled dragon's might. Roar! In the depths of the void, a dragon's roar resounded. The terrifying pressure was released, making Zhen Qingchun, Qian Guyu, and the others tremble. This old man was too powerful. His body was wrapped in clouds and surrounded by runes. His aura was monstrous, as if a true dragon had been born. It made people's souls tremble. The old man's deep eyes were terrifying. It was as if 2 giant dragons were rising, about to soar for thousands of miles. This pair of eyes seemed to be able to make one's soul fly out of their body and scatter with a single glance. Roar! As the old man appeared, the void froze. The wind and clouds surged, and a dragon's roar resounded. The aura of a true dragon filled the air. The faint shadow of a dragon hovered in the void. Dazzling runes descended like a rain of light. It was like a miracle. Dragon soaring dragon. When they saw the majestic old man and felt the terrifying dragon's might, Qian Guyu, Silver Fox, Stone, Qi Guiyu, and the others' expressions changed. This was a truly terrifying expert. They had seen him before. He was the ancestor of the dragons, the ancestor of the dragons. Soaring dragon. On the square, Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes and raised his head slightly. His gaze fell on the old figure of the dragons that had suddenly appeared. How could Du Xiaofu be unfamiliar with that majestic old man? Dragon soaring dragon. Back in the divine domain, Li Chenfa, Gong Sunhua, and the others had used their Yuan spirit avatars to kill him. In the end, one of their Yuan spirit avatars was killed by him. Then, along with Li Chenfa and the others, they wanted to kill him. In the end, Old Lei and the others appeared. How dare you kill the disciples of the dragons? Today, this ancestor will turn you into ashes. Dragon. As Soaring Dragon appeared, his gaze swept across the corpses around him. He glared at Jin Qingchun, Yi Piaoling, and the others. The dragon's shadow around him fluctuated, and the dragon's aura was terrifying. "Set up the formation," Yi Piaoling shouted. Facing an expert like Soaring Dragon, they could only use their full strength. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to resist. Long Fun and this Soaring Dragon were not on the same level. "There's no need for you to do anything. Someone will deal with this old man. Let's just watch the show." Jin Qingchun stopped Yi Piaoling and the others. Facing Soaring Dragon, he didn't look serious at all. Instead, he was smiling. Hearing this, Yi Piaoling, Qian Guyu, and the others were surprised and puzzled. They quickly looked around. Jin Qingchun's words naturally could not escape Long Ting's ears. He also secretly moved his eyes, sweeping the surroundings below with the corners of his eyes. "Humph, no one can save you today. I will turn you into ashes." Sensing no powerful aura, Soaring Dragon instantly became furious. Killing intent filled the air, causing the void to tremble. "Aren't you going to show yourself? I'm afraid we can't kill this old man. You'll have to do it yourself," Jin Qingchun said. His expression was calm, as if he was confident. "Old man, when I destroyed your avatar, I told you to wash your neck clean. I'll definitely chop off your head and kick it like a ball. Today is the time." Just as Jin Qingchun finished speaking, a voice rumbled and resounded through the void. Swish, swish, everyone's eyes fell on Du Xiaofu. They could clearly feel that the person who spoke was the scarred man. He was the one who didn't take a super expert like Soaring Dragon seriously even when facing Soaring Dragon. Mr. Qiao, the people of House Wei were even more shocked. For a moment, they were confused and didn't know what was going on. Only Jin Qingchun, who was not far away, smiled. He knew what was going on. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Du Xiaofu stepped out and ascended into the air step by step. His body was wriggling, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. Golden light overflowed from his back, and then it became dazzling. A pair of golden wings spread out, and his entire body exuded an indescribable pressure. His eyes were like lightning as he ascended into the void. Golden light burst out from his golden wings, and the golden talisman patterns made the void lose its color. In an instant, a terrifying pressure filled the sky, and the world was suppressed. "It's the aura of the golden-winged rock." The surrounding beasts were shocked. Some of them recognized the aura of the great golden-winged rocks. The pressure was even more powerful than that of the dragons. When the great golden-winged rocks appeared, Yi Piaoling, Qian Guyu, Qi Guiyu, Mu Ruobai, and the others' eyes trembled. "Greetings, President." The 18 celestial guards led by Yi Piaoling, Qian Guyu, and the others bowed respectfully. The 18 celestial guards took orders from the president, and they only listened to the president. When the great golden-winged rocks appeared, they already knew who that figure was. No wonder Brother Qingchun was so confident. It turned out that he had nothing to fear. What's going on? Old Master Wei, Wei Jiejia, and the other disciples of House Wei were completely shocked. Their mouths were opened so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in. Just what was the identity of the man who had been following them for the past few days? Why were even the terrifying 18 celestial guards saluting him respectfully at this moment? President, could he be? Wei Jiejia seemed to have thought of something. Her delicate body suddenly quivered, and her eyes trembled fiercely. In the sky, the great golden-winged rocks spread open. The muscles on Du Xiaofu's face were changing, and the scars were disappearing. He gradually returned to his original appearance, revealing a resolute face. His eyes were like lightning, intimidating and sharp. Du Xiaofu, you little bastard, you finally appeared. Dragon. When Du Xiaofu's figure was completely revealed, at this moment, a loud roar like a dragon's roar resounded from Long Ting's mouth. A sharp killing intent that caused one's heart to turn cold swept through the air as dragon patterns filled his eyes. Heavens, so he's the Demon King Du Xiaofu. Heavens, he's the Demon King Du Xiaofu. At this moment, the surroundings were in an uproar. That title was a contemporary legend. It's really him, he's the Demon King Du Xiaofu. Wei Jiajia's delicate body trembled, and her entire body quivered. The Demon King Du Xiaofu, that legendary man, had been by her side all these days. Recommended junior brother Feng Xiangyu's new book, Urban Super Prodigal, was already on the shelves. Chapter 1897. Little bastard, you won't be able to escape today. No one will be able to save you anymore. Long Ting shouted coldly with undisguised killing intent. Last time, he had joined forces with the School of Legalism and the School of Vertical and Horizontal to kill Shao Chen, and had even dispatched a Saint stage expert. In the end, they were stopped by the mysterious Fu Weibai. The stronger this kid was, the greater his backing would be, and the more uneasy the dragons would be. They would pay any price to kill Shao Chen and prevent future troubles. I wonder who will escape later. Du Xiaofu looked at Long Ting with a cold gaze, and a mocking smile hung on his lips. Even though Long Ting was already a Lord Region realm expert and wasn't inferior to Li Qinfa and Qin Tian, he was still inferior to Qi Xingpe. Du Xiaofu had fought Qi Xingpe when he was at the peak of the Nirvana stage, and he had gained the upper hand. At this moment, he had already reached the Nirvana stage, so why would Du Xiaofu be worried about Long Ting? It was no longer the same as before. Every dog had its day, and Du Xiaofu was no longer a persimmon that could be kneaded by others. Stubborn huh? Since that's the case, then let this ancestor see how much you've grown during this period of time, and whether you have the ability to be stubborn in front of this ancestor. Long Ting laughed coldly as a cold light surged out from his eyes. With a sweep of his sleeve, a white energy pillar surged out from his body. It was like a cloud, and it looked like white clouds had covered the sky, causing faint pitch-black spatial cracks to appear in the surrounding space. The terrifying dragon pressure was intimidating. How many of the living beings present had seen such an expert in action before, and all of them felt their souls tremble. The pressure is too terrifying. Those with lower cultivations turned pale, and their bodies trembled as if they were about to explode from the terrifying pressure. Du Xiaofu's golden wings flapped slightly as he sensed the powerful aura within Long Ting's body. Golden ripples erupted as the human form Peng floated in the air with a calm expression. Looking at Du Xiaofu's calm expression, Long Ting's face turned increasingly gloomy. The white energy was like a cloud that covered the void, and soon after, it also covered his body. Die, you little bastard. The instant Long Ting's figure disappeared, the white-colored energy in the empty space began to rapidly rotate like a vortex. A densely cold voice was emitted as a frightening energy storm swept towards Du Xiaofu like a tornado. Chi la la, spatial cracks were densely packed within the white energy storm. If an ordinary domain realm cultivator were to come into contact with it, their physical body would be instantly destroyed. Du Xiaofu remained expressionless. Resplendent golden runes shot out from the golden wings on his back. After that, his silhouette trembled as the great rock flapped its wings, bringing with it a wave of golden light. Instead of retreating, it advanced, rushing towards the energy storm. When his figure came into contact with the white energy storm, the golden wings of the Depeng exploded with terrifying power, causing a wave of fluctuation in the white energy storm. Humph! Long Ting's cold snort was emitted from within the white energy storm. A claw print stretched out from the void like a dragon's claw. Layers of the void under the claw distorted as it pressed down on Du Xiaofu. A.O., Du Xiaofu's fist was mixed with the roar of a dragon and the cry of an elephant as it ruthlessly blasted towards the claw. This was Du Xiaofu's tyrannical fist way. Du Xiaofu also did not hold back. He used one of his strongest attacks from the very beginning. Bang! A fist and a claw collided in the void, and a thunderous explosion of energy suddenly resounded. Broken runes and energy ripples quickly spread out, and the surrounding void was disintegrated by this kind of energy, causing turbulent waves to appear. The white clouds dispersed, revealing Long Ting's figure. He staggered a few steps back in the void. His shoulders shook as he waved his sleeves. Only then did he disperse the tyrannical energy. On the other hand, Du Xiaofu's body trembled slightly. The golden light behind him was resplendent. It was obvious that he had the upper hand. "Old man, you don't seem to have made any progress at all." Du Xiaofu smiled faintly with a hint of ridicule. Long Ting's strength was as he had expected. It was indeed incomparable to the Yin-Yang school's 7 stars break. Bastard! Listening to Du Xiaofu's words, Long Ting's gaze could not help but twitch fiercely. This was sprinkling salt on the wound. Back then, Long Ting had lost a primordial spirit clone in the divine realm. Under such heavy injuries, he had not recovered until now. If he did not have a great opportunity in the future, it would be impossible for him to make any progress. For a cultivator, this was undoubtedly similar to death. "Brat, you're still a little inexperienced after all." Long Ting sneered as he clenched his fists with all his strength. In the faint sound of a dragon's roar, his figure was like thunder as he fiercely smashed towards Du Xiaofu through the air. At this moment, Long Ting wanted to use his most powerful attack to crush the former. That brat's physical body was abnormal, his speed was also abnormal, and he even had several spiritual thunder in his body. He was too powerful and terrifying. However, Long Ting did not believe that Du Xiaofu could really contend with him now. Li Chunfa and Qin Tian's battle was probably because they were careless. And he would definitely not follow in their footsteps. He wanted to end the battle quickly and kill Du Xiaofu. Rumble. Long Ting's punch was powerful and simple. The space in front of the fist distorted into a concave arc, and the invisible space emitted a dull sound that resounded through the void. Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked at the rapidly approaching figure in his eyes. The corner of his mouth slightly raised into a cold arc. His feet stepped on the waves of the free step, and the Depeng golden wings flapped behind him. The strange changes of the free step and the speed of the Depeng golden wings were superimposed, like adding wings to a tiger. It could be said that in terms of speed, Du Xiaofu activated the free step and the Depeng golden wings. Among the cultivators of the same level, who could compare to him? Long Ting's punch hit Du Xiaofu like a cannonball, causing the void to explode. Runes surged, but Du Xiaofu's figure had already disappeared. "Old man, your speed isn't enough." At the same time, Du Xiaofu's figure appeared in the void beside Long Ting. He didn't give Long Ting any time to react. The Depeng golden wings on his back flapped, domineering and fierce. His right hand clenched into a fist, and with the roar of a dragon and the cry of an elephant, he punched at Long Ting again. This kind of attack was fast and ferocious. There was nothing fancy about it, only a terrifying surge of power. The void around the fist crumbled inch by inch, leaving behind a pitch-black vacuum. It was terrifying to the soul. Long Ting frowned inwardly when he sensed such a terrifying power. Long Ting was an ancestor-level figure, a master of the beast region. He had lived for a long time and had rich battle experience. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, he suddenly leaned to the side in disbelief. A surge of energy suddenly appeared around him, covering his body with a layer of dragon scale-like armor. It was as if it was real. Roar! At the same time, Long Ting sneered. He opened his fist into a palm, and a cloud of light erupted from his palm. It shook the void, and a terrifying vortex appeared. An enormous dragon wanted to break through the void, roaring endlessly. "Brat, you've already used this move. Have a taste of my dragon swallows of 10,000 miles." Long Ting's cold voice was like thunder. He sneered, and the dragon in his palm roared ferociously, fiercely colliding with Du Xiaofu's fist. Chapter 1898. Domineering Fist Wei was overbearing and fierce as it ruthlessly smashed into the former's palm. Boom! The two collided, but only a slight sound was emitted. The terrifying power on Du Xiaofu's fist was swallowed by the huge dragon illusion and disappeared. This kind of change also caused Du Xiaofu to reveal a surprised expression. "Brat, you are still too inexperienced. You are not enough to fight with this ancestor." Long Ting laughed coldly when he saw the surprised expression on Du Xiaofu's face. The devouring power in his palm became even more turbulent and stronger. Roar! Suddenly, Du Xiaofu let out a loud roar. The dragon's roar and elephant's cry was vast and mighty. The domineering roar was like thunder, causing the universe to rumble. The sound wave destroyed one's Yuan spirit and also destroyed the huge dragon illusion. It also caused Long Ting's eyes to become a little dull. At the same time, a cold smile appeared in Du Xiaofu's eyes. Profound energy surged within the divine watchtower, emitting a rumbling sound. An even stronger overbearing power charged out from his fist. After which, it heavily smashed into Long Ting's palm, bringing with it a terrifying force that was like a wild tide. The surrounding space was filled with pitch-black cracks. Puff puff, Long Ting spat out a mouthful of blood. His dull eyes suddenly regained their focus. However, the tangible armor on his body was also cracking. His body was like a bird with broken wings as he ruthlessly smashed into the ground from the sky. Bang bang! Long Ting's body smashed into a mottled ancient rock wall. The ground cracked continuously, forming arm-sized cracks. Dragon blood flowed out from his palm. Clearly, it was caused by Du Xiaofu's punch just now. The dragon's scale-like armor on his body was also disappearing. The surrounding living creatures all retreated. Some of the unlucky ones were crushed by the invisible energy that scattered. There was no way to reason with them. Good, very good. Ever since this ancestor stepped into the master region, no one has been able to put me in such a miserable state. You are the first. Long Ting stood up and wiped the few strands of blood on his beard. His expression had completely darkened. He sneered and shouted angrily. An increasingly dark and cold killing intent spread out from his body. Didn't I destroy one of your clones last time? Du Xiaofu smiled faintly, unconcerned. I'm not done with you, you little bastard. Long Ting was furious. This was like rubbing salt on his wound. His figure rushed out, and light erupted. He transformed into a huge white cloud dragon. The dragon claws waved, and the dragon might was unparalleled. Dragon breath rolled out. Ow! The dragon's roar shook the heavens and the earth. The enormous dragon's body swooped down from the sea of clouds with its huge tail in the air. It raised its head and opened its ferocious mouth. The dragon's eyes were as bright as the Milky Way. Its dragon claws tore through the void and covered a large area, grabbing towards Du Xiaofu. Transforming into a dragon's body was Long Ting's strongest state. Long Ting was an ancestor of dragons and a main region expert. His reputation was definitely not just for show. Previously, when Du Xiaofu had killed his doppelganger, it was also because his doppelganger had been greatly suppressed in the divine domain. It wasn't his original strength. Boom! It was also at this moment that the void exploded. Golden light shone brightly, and dazzling runes flowed. Du Xiaofu flapped his wings and soared into the sky. His aura suddenly surged, and he was like a god standing tall. A terrifying pressure spread out, making people want to kneel down and kowtow. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was like a real rock that had appeared in the world. It was terrifying. Purple gold runes shone in his eyes, and it was as if there was a golden-winged rock above him. Lightning flashed, thunder rumbled, stars rotated, and purple flames surged. At this moment, these pairs of eyes were reflecting a shocking phenomenon. Boom! Facing the huge dragon, Du Xiaofu didn't retreat at all. He shook his arm, and the golden wings on his back flapped. He directly slapped out a palm. Light spread out from the palm. It was resplendent and dazzling. Runes flickered, and it quietly contained a destructive fluctuation that made people's hearts tremble. A diagram of the 8 trigrams covered Du Xiaofu's palm. Waves surged, and runes intertwined to form a palm. It was filled with destructive power, and it didn't stop at all as it collided with the huge dragon. The palm collided head-on with the huge dragon. In an instant, the entire void trembled. Crack crack, the void was chaotic, and all kinds of dazzling runes drowned out everything. Space directly cracked, and a large number of pitch-black spatial cracks appeared. It was like a black hole that swallowed everything. Phenomena filled the sky. Dragon roared, and the space became chaotic. Energy storms swept out in all directions. This scene caused the gazes below to be stupefied. Their hearts palpitated as their expressions changed from shock. They didn't dare to imagine a battle like this. Roar! The huge dragon's body retreated. Its huge head was lifted up by the spatial waves. The dragon's body twisted, and a large mouthful of dragon blood spurted out as it roared. Oh my God! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. What kind of divine might was this? He had heavily injured Long Ting's main body with a single palm strike. Just how terrifying was the power contained in the body that seemed so small compared to the huge dragon to be able to create such a shocking scene. The 18 celestial guards raised their heads and looked at the void. Their eyes were full of brilliance. Qi. When Long Ting's body was forced back, Du Xiaofu's mouth once again curled into a faint sneer. In an instant, there were arcs of lightning that were difficult to detect that swept out from the void. Du Xiaofu's figure also disappeared in an instant. Chi la la, arcs of lightning filled the air. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the surrounding void. A terrifying destructive aura swept out. When Du Xiaofu's figure appeared again, he was already above Long Ting's ferocious head. At this moment, Long Ting seemed to have felt something. His dragon pupils shrank, and for no reason, a chill climbed up his dragon soul. His huge body quickly retreated. But it was too late. The golden wings behind Du Xiaofu's back shone with golden light, shaking the void and imprisoning it. Indestructible. You've broken through to the indestructible realm. Long Ting discovered that the aura that imprisoned the void had reached the indestructible realm. The kid in front of him had already reached the indestructible realm in this short period of time. When he first heard the name Du Xiaofu, he was just an ant. Long Ting didn't even pay attention to him. It wasn't until Long 8, Long 7, and the others were killed one after another that Long Ting truly noticed Du Xiaofu. In the space of the divine realm, Long Ting truly began to pay attention and wanted to get rid of him. But at that time, Long Ting still didn't really take it to heart. It was just that the kid was lucky time and time again, and someone saved him. But at this moment, feeling the indestructible cultivation aura on Du Xiaofu's body, the shock in Long Ting's heart was indescribable. The human that he had regarded as an ant had already reached the indestructible realm in this short period of time. A Nirvana Grand Supreme was equivalent to completely surpassing him. Not good. Long Ting was terrified. He was inexplicably terrified. In an instant, he threw out all his trump cards without holding back. He erupted with all his strength and desperately retreated. Ao 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 ao, dragon roars were endless. Giant dragon shadows rose up one after another. Dragon might rolled and shattered the void. Chapter 1899. Rumble, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the void. Du Xiaofu flapped his wings and soared into the sky. Silver-gold electric arcs intertwined in his hands, flashing resplendently. Accompanied by the starlight, they formed a silver-gold starlight spear in front of him. This silver-gold starlight spear was formed by several types of spiritual thunder and lightning marshaled veins in Du Xiaofu's body. The void suddenly rumbled and trembled. A supreme pressure descended, thunder and lightning intertwined. Swish! This spear pierced through the void. Wherever it passed, a pitch-black spatial crack hung in the sky, destroying everything. The giant dragon shadows shattered inch by inch. In the end, the silver-gold starlight spear swept into Long Ting's head like a resplendent thunderbolt. The spear had no head, causing the energy of heaven and earth to become chaotic. The silver-gold starlight spear pierced through Long Ting's head, shocking the surrounding creatures who were already trembling in fear. Pfff, Long Ting spat out large mouthfuls of blood. His huge dragon body fell at the same time. A resplendent white light shot out from between his eyebrows, piercing through the void and escaping rapidly. Rumble, thunder and lightning intertwined in the void. Silver-gold arcs of starlight quietly filled the void and turned into a huge lightning tree. It was suffused with a soul-sucking aura and confined the bright white light that was trying to escape within the roots of the lightning tree. Roar, the dragon's roar was deafening. The resplendent white light faded, and a crystal-clear white cloud dragon appeared. Its eyes were filled with fear and despair. That was Long Ting's dragon soul primordial spirit. However, at this moment, it was bound by the lightning tree roots and was naturally suppressed. It could no longer escape. The lightning tree turned into a resplendent electric arc and swept back to between Du Xiaofu's eyebrows, disappearing. Bang, 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 the huge dragon corpse fell heavily on the ground, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. The ground of the small town cracked, and the mountains outside the town collapsed. It was frightening. Gugu, looking at the huge dragon corpse on the ground, the surrounding creatures raised their heads and looked at the man in the void. He had a pair of wings on his back and a golden light rushed into the sky. He was a god, and also the Demon King. Gugu, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, all of them trembling in fear. The Wei clan disciples were all flabbergasted. How could they have imagined that the Mr. Qiao, who had been by their side for the past few days, was actually the great rock emperor of the desolate country? Witnessing his terrifying strength with their own eyes was even more shocking. There had been some House Wei disciples who felt that his bold declaration of sweeping through all the supreme geniuses of the heavenly devil battlefield had been a little too boastful. But now, they were speechless. Demon King Du Xiaofu had already swept through his peers in this world. Today, even an old ancestor of the dragon race was killed. How terrifying. This guy, Zhen at this moment, Long Ting's Long's dragon body dragon. Originally, Zhen Qingchun was confident that Du Xiaofu would definitely be able to withstand Long Ting. However, he did not expect Du Xiaofu's strength to actually reach such a level and easily kill Long Ting. Boom! Du Xiaofu appeared on top of Long Ting's dragon corpse. A vast golden light swept out from his palm and enveloped the dragon corpse. Then, with a burst of light, the huge dragon corpse gradually shrank to a length of several zhang. Dragon scales filled the air as Du Xiaofu put it into his qianquan pouch. I'm going to seclude myself here for a few days. Du Xiaofu retracted his golden ping wings and landed beside Zhen Qingchun and the 18 celestial guards. He was going to seclude himself for a few days. Du Xiaofu was not afraid of the dragons in the heavenly devil battlefield. It would be better if the school of vertical and horizontal and legalism did not come. If they did, he would be more than happy to oblige. Alright, I'll keep an eye on things for you. Don't worry about anything else. I'll tell you in detail after you come out of seclusion. Zhen Qingchun nodded. He knew that Du Xiaofu had just bound Long Ting's dragon soul origin spirit. He probably needed time to refine it. That would bring him great benefits. A while later, the bones of the several dozen dragons were unceremoniously collected by the 18 celestial guards into their qianquan pouches. Much of the serpent dragon and beast meat was directly roasted by Jin Qing Chun, Stone, Chi Guoyu, and the others. They ate heartily. Many of the spectating creatures in the distance felt their hairs stand on end, especially the beasts. The people of the desolate country are just as savage as the demon king Du Xiaofu. Some of the beasts did not dare to stay for long. They were afraid that the terrifying 18 celestial guards would want to eat them alive. Du Xiaofu sat with his legs crossed in the desolate ancient space. The silver net soul-devouring thunder in his soul had devoured and refined Long Ting's dragon soul origin spirit. He circulated the mysterious incomplete cultivation method, working together to refine Long Ting's dragon soul origin spirit into his own pure soul. Terrifying waves of soul energy surged through his mud pill palace. Long Ting was one of the ancestors of the dragons. His dragon soul origin spirit was extremely powerful. Although Du Xiaofu had removed the impurities and retained the essence, he had only obtained 10 or 20% of the original soul energy. After all, this was not the power of a soul that he had cultivated himself, so he was unable to devour it all. However, 10 or 20% was still absolutely terrifying. This was the heavenly demon battlefield. Saints were still unable to enter. Du Xiaofu did not fear legalism. If the dragons or the school of vertical and horizontal came looking for him, it would be even better if they did. Time gradually passed. Under the refinement of the silver net soul-devouring thunder and the mysterious incomplete cultivation method, Long Ting's dragon soul origin spirit was completely refined. Du Xiaofu's dragon soul origin spirit grew by quite a bit. A Lord Regent Dragon Corpse. This is a treasure. When Long Ting's dragon soul origin spirit was completely refined, Du Xiaofu took out Long Ting's dragon soul origin spirit from his Qianquan bag. It was suffused with multicolored light. It was just a corpse. It had lost its vitality and had shrunk to several meters in size. However, it was still suffused with a terrifying dragon might. Such a dragon corpse was definitely a great treasure. Its value was immeasurable. Walala, large amounts of refining materials flew out from Du Xiaofu's Qianquan bag. They emitted a treasure light that illuminated the desolate country. Do it. Narrowing his eyes, Du Xiaofu's expression became a little more serious. Flames surged in his hand, and a blazing spiritual flame appeared. Du Xiaofu wanted to refine Long Ting's dragon corpse into a puppet to condense a spiritual furnace talisman cauldron. For an ordinary talisman master, refining a dragon corpse like Long Ting was simply impossible. The consumption was too great. Du Xiaofu was not too worried. If he refined Long Ting's dragon corpse into a puppet, it would be a great help to him when the time came. Qi La. Condensing a spiritual furnace talisman cauldron, raging flames surged like divine fire. Du Xiaofu waved his hand, and a formless claw distorted the space, wrapping Long Ting's dragon corpse and throwing it into the spiritual furnace talisman cauldron. Aoo, a dragon's roar resounded. Long Ting's dragon corpse trembled, transforming back into its original huge body, traversing through the desolate ancient space. Walala, the spiritual furnace talisman cauldron expanded. Du Xiaofu's hand seals quickly condensed, and his figure sat cross-legged on top of the spiritual furnace talisman cauldron. Surging profound energy supported the spiritual furnace talisman cauldron, and the power of his soul swept out, accompanied by arcs of lightning. Walala, as Long Ting's dragon corpse entered the spiritual furnace talisman cauldron, the white dragon scales were immediately covered in raging flames. In the blazing flames, a sizzling sound immediately erupted. However, these dragon scales were too hard. Even if Long Ting was already dead, these dragon scales were still a treasure that was difficult to destroy. But Du Xiaofu was no longer the same as before. Being able to kill Long Ting, how could he not be able to deal with Long Ting's dragon corpse? What's more, Du Xiaofu wasn't trying to destroy the dragon scales. Instead, he was trying to temper Long Ting's physical body to become even more solid. On the contrary, he couldn't destroy the dragon scales. This was the puppet's final line of defense. In the midst of the raging flames, the dragon scales were unceasingly twitching. As time slowly passed, on Long Ting's dragon corpse, those layers of dragon scales unceasingly overflowed with traces of blood, before finally dissipating into white mist due to the high temperature. All of this seemed extremely cruel and bloody. Fortunately, Long Ting was already dead, and didn't have any consciousness. Otherwise, this would have been the most miserable torture. Du Xiaofu didn't feel any cruelty or bloodiness. This Long Ting wanted to kill him time and time again, and the dragons intercepted him several times on the way. How could he be polite now? Focusing all his attention on controlling the flames in the cauldron, Du Xiaofu didn't dare to show any carelessness. If the flames in the cauldron were too great, they would be enough to burn Long Ting's corpse to ashes. If the flames were too small, the temperature would not be enough, and the impurities in Long Ting's corpse would not be refined, which would fail to meet the requirements for refining a puppet. However, in general, Long Ting was only left with his corpse. Compared to refining a living puppet, it was much easier. Under Du Xiaofu's refinement, the impurities in the dragon corpse were gradually refined. The dragon's scales glowed, and mist filled the surroundings. The crystalline dragon tendons, bones, and flesh were filled with inscriptions that radiated with light. At a glance, it seemed to possess a shocking amount of power. The body of a Lord Domain expert was definitely terrifying in the first place. After being refined, it had reached a whole new level. Du Xiaofu consumed a lot of energy through such a refinement. His face was rather pale, and his forehead was covered in sweat. What came next was the second step, which required refining a large amount of puppet materials. The time in the desolate country was very loose, while the time in the small town seemed rather slow. With that great battle, the descent of the 18 heavenly generals and the child of the sacred array, the cowardly creatures had already left the town, afraid of provoking some trouble. They were also afraid of the dragons coming for revenge, which would cause them to be affected. Some of the bolder ones stayed in the vicinity, watching from afar, thinking that they might be able to obtain some benefits. If the dragons came for revenge, they would be able to watch the show. The treasure has chosen you, so it shouldn't be harmful to you. Try communicating with your soul. Once it truly recognizes you as its master, it will be a great opportunity for you. In a simple courtyard, Zhen Qingchun said to Wei Jiejie, who was sitting cross-legged with her eyes closed. He guided her to communicate with the extraordinary sword in her Naiwen palace. He was becoming more and more satisfied with this disciple of his. Secret puppet technique, condense. Condense. At a certain time, Du Xiaofu's eyes shone brightly in the desolate ancient space. White light rippled all over his body, and the huge spiritual furnace and talisman cauldron transformed into a boiling liquid, pouring onto the dragon corpse like a flood. Hiss, hiss, the boiling liquid poured onto the dragon corpse, producing sizzling sounds. Inscriptions pulsed and shone resplendently. The white dragon corpse also began to dark green. The layers of scales shone with an icy green metallic luster. It was chilling and terrifying. Chapter 1900. Handprints gathered in Du Xiaofu's hands at the same time, and streaks of strange light transformed into mysterious runes. The light from these runes fell on the dragon corpse, causing its originally tightly shut dragon eyes to suddenly open. The dragon corpse's originally lifeless and empty dragon eyes, which were almost dead, began to strangely and slowly emit an ice-cold and pale white gaze. It gave one an ice-cold chill, causing one's hair to stand on end when one looked at it. Suddenly, when Du Xiaofu's last handprint was formed, a brilliant stream of light shot into the dragon corpse's brow from between his brows. Roar! The dragon corpse, which had long since lost its vitality, suddenly opened its mouth and roared. A strange vitality emanated from its body, and a terrifying pressure swept through the ancient space, shaking the void and causing lightning to flash and thunder to roll. The giant dragon traversed the ancient space, and had already turned into a cold and dark green color. Du Xiaofu sized up the dragon-bodied puppet before him. It was slightly weaker than Longtang from before, but in terms of defense, it was definitely a level higher. If it's refined into a living puppet, it should be much stronger. Du Xiaofu muttered. A corpse puppet could not be compared to a living puppet. If he had not killed Longting back then and directly refined him into a puppet, its power would definitely be stronger, but the power of his own primordial spirit would not have increased. But no matter what, this dragon-bodied puppet had been successfully refined, and this was enough for Du Xiaofu to rejoice in his heart. You'll be called Long Ming from now on, right? Yes. Du Xiaofu looked at the puppet before him, which still carried a terrifying dragon's might. A moment later, in the ancient courtyard of the small town. Your father, Little Shuang, Du Yunlong, Du Xiaoman, and the others have all come in. The dragons, school of vertical and horizontal, and legalism have been looking for trouble, but they can't gain any advantage at all. If it weren't for the fact that many of their old fellows have entered the heavenly devil battlefield, I'm afraid they could only run away with their tails between their legs. Zhen Qingchun smiled and informed Du Xiaofu about the current situation in the heavenly devil battlefield. The school of vertical and horizontal, the legalism, and the dragons had lost almost all of their supreme geniuses in the divine domain. This time, it was only because many old fellows had entered the heavenly devil battlefield that they dared to continue causing trouble for the desolate nation. Otherwise, they would not be a match for the current desolate nation. However, the golden-winged rocks, the school of agriculture, the school of yin-yang, and the school of Moism are all helping. Legalism won't be able to gain any advantage at all. Zhen Qingchun had a smile on his face. He, the 18 heavenly generals, Du Yunlong, Mo Tianshao, and the others were searching for dragons to kill. The tables had already turned. After hearing about the desolate country's recent situation, Du Xiaofu felt relieved and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Has Senior Lei entered the heavenly devil battlefield? Du Xiaofu asked. His purple robes covered his face, and his aura was restrained. His expression was resolute, and his eyes were sharp. If he did not make a move, no one would know that this was a dormant golden-winged rock, a terrifying demon king. Senior Lei seems to be under some kind of restriction. He is currently unable to enter the heavenly devil battlefield. Zhen Qingchun said to Du Xiaofu, the dragons, the school of vertical and horizontal, the legalism, and the others are all searching for you. Your younger sister, Xiao Jing, has also entered the heavenly devil battlefield. Du Xiaofu raised his head slightly with a calm expression. It was not strange for the dragons and the others to search for him. It was also within his expectations that his younger sister, Xiao Jing, would be in the heavenly devil battlefield. Is there any news of little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, little Qing, and the little tiger? Du Xiaofu asked. Not yet, but perhaps little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and the others have already entered. It's just that we haven't received any news yet. Zhen Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu. His expression changed slightly, and he said, however, I recently received news that the famed clan is looking for trouble with Dongli Qingqing. Du Xiaoman, Du Yunlong, and Little Shuang have already gone to help. The 18 celestial generals and I were also planning to go and help. We accidentally heard that the dragons were here, so we came over. I didn't expect you to be here as well. The famed clan. Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered when he heard that. He immediately asked, where are they now? According to the news, Dongli Qingqing has been fleeing. She seems to be heading in the direction of the heavenly Yu Mountain, Zhen Qingchun said. The heavenly Yu Mountain? Is there really such a place? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows slightly. He had heard Wei Jiejia mention this place a few days ago. It was said that the heavenly Yu Mountain was one of the few mysterious places in the heavenly devil battlefield. It was rumored that there were towering trees everywhere, countless spiritual herbs, and spiritual birds and beasts. It had never been tainted by evil demons. It was a pity that the heavenly Yu mountain was very mysterious. Not only could it not be found, but it was also impossible for living beings to set foot in it. It said that the place is very mysterious. It's usually impossible to find it. However, there have been strange phenomena in the sky recently. An expert has deduced the direction of the heavenly Yu mountain. It's in the southeast of the heavenly devil battlefield. According to the news we received, Dongli Qingqing is also heading in the direction of the heavenly Yu mountain. She might also want to enter the heavenly Yu mountain, Zhen Qingchen said. I'll go first. Du Xiaofu's gaze turned cold. The fact that the famous families were looking for trouble with Dongli Qingqing had him worried. Based on Dongli Qingqing's strength, she might not be able to defend against the famous families. Old Lei had not entered the heavenly devil battlefield, and Dongli Qingqing's master could not enter either. She was in a very dangerous situation right now. Alright, the 18 heavenly generals and I will be there soon. Now that the heavenly Yu mountain has appeared, I'm sure other powers should be rushing over as well. There should be people from the dragons, legalism, and school of vertical and horizontal. Zhen Qingchen said. Whoosh! Du Xiaofu's feet shone with a golden light as he darted into the distance. The heavenly devil battlefield was vast and boundless. Screech! In the vast void, a large patch of black clouds appeared all of a sudden, letting out an ear-piercing screech. A gigantic black beast swooped down from the front of its chest. Its wings were eerie, as though they were made of metal. Bringing with it a bloodthirsty aura, it flapped its wings and distorted the void, pouncing towards Du Xiaofu, who was rushing over. This was a demonic beast. Its strength was extremely strong, comparable to that of a domain state being. It was extremely frightening. Within the heavenly devil battlefield, many living beings had been killed recently. Du Xiaofu paused for a moment as he raised his head to look at the ferocious beast. He was unmoved. A golden light gushed out from his body as a domineering aura swept out, causing the void around him to distort silently. This was the frightening aura brought about by Du Xiaofu's undying and indestructible cultivation state. To be able to distort the void around him, a power like this was unimaginable for those with insufficient cultivation states. The demonic beast that was swooping down suddenly shuddered as it felt an instinctive sense of fear. However, its gigantic body was bound as well. It was as though it had fallen into a swamp, unable to break free from the void. Xing! Du Xiaofu did not stand on ceremony. Since this beast had already been demonized, it would be a disaster if it was left alive. Stretching out his hand, purple flames rolled out and incinerated the beast in the void, turning it into smoke. After killing that demonic beast, Du Xiaofu continued on his journey towards the rumored heavenly Yu mountain. Roar! A few hours later, on top of a gigantic mountain peak, a gigantic black tiger that was 1,000 feet tall roared. Its entire body was covered in thick black fur, and it was extremely ferocious. The tiger's eyes were filled with an unparalleled rapport as it opened its mouth. Accompanied by a terrifying roar, it charged towards Du Xiaofu who was passing by. Chapter 1901. Evil Beast. Du Xiaofu swooped down as a stalk of dark insight grass appeared in the air, purifying the evil spirit and dispersing the black energy. A finger imprint shot out like lightning, directly piercing through the forehead of the vicious tiger, killing it instantly. There were many such demonic beasts in the heavenly devil battlefield. Flying in the air was not necessarily safer. The demonic beasts that could attack in the air were usually more powerful. However, with Du Xiaofu's strength, these demonic beasts could not stop him. A mottled land with broken walls and dilapidated buildings was in a mess. There were traces of a fierce battle everywhere, filled with demonic aura. There was still demonic qi in the surroundings that had not completely dissipated, and there were still corpses of living beings. There was blood that had not dried up and was emitting a bloody light. It was the blood of a powerhouse. That was why it was glowing. There was a fierce battle here. Du Xiaofu felt the auras of many experts on the battlefield. They were from the Beast Clan, the Human Clan, the Evil Devil Clan, and the Demonic Beast Clan. Their strength was extraordinary, and many of them were at the Domain Realm. It was not hard to imagine that a fierce battle had taken place here. It was very fierce and had attracted many powerhouses. Even the mountains in the surroundings had been swept away, leaving only half of them. It was a mess. There are also powerful talisman masters. Du Xiaofu also found traces of talisman arrays. They were very impressive, and the person who set them up was not weak. Woo-woo, suddenly, there was a woo-woo sound that seemed to come from the underworld. There are demons. Du Xiaofu was startled and quickly rushed out. In a messy ancient land, black fog surged all around. The woo-woo sound was like the wailing of ghosts and gods. There were at least 100 ferocious energy bodies surrounding a dozen humans of all ages. Bang bang bang, the battle was fierce. The strongest among these dozen humans was only at the Venerable Realm. The demons were very strong, and as a whole, were several times stronger. These human cultivators were no match for them at all. A dozen of them had already been affected and turned into walking corpses. They were being controlled by the demons to counterattack and kill the dozen humans. The situation was very dangerous. The dozen humans were no match for them at all. My life ends here. There were some who felt despair. Their eyes revealed fear as they entered a desperate situation. They were powerless to break out of the encirclement. Whoosh whoosh, suddenly, a stalk of grass appeared. Its spiritual leaves were long and slender, as if it was real. Mysterious symbols flickered about. As the stalk of grass flew out, a powerful pressure descended from the sky, causing the eyes of the ferocious evil spirits to tremble. This stalk of grass seemed to be able to suppress all evil. As soon as this stalk of grass appeared, countless spirit leaves shot out like waterfalls, piercing through space and eliminating the hundreds of evil spirits around it. Woo-woo, demonic radiance overflowed in all directions, erupting with terrifying tacit understanding. They wanted to struggle free from the power of that stalk of grass, but in the end, they couldn't escape and were all killed. The dozen or so old and young people were shocked. The other party's strength was too terrifying. Thank you for saving me, sir. I'm extremely grateful. I'm willing to do anything for you. An elder led everyone to kneel down to express his gratitude. He was also worried that Du Xiaofu would attack them. After all, this was the Heaven Demon battlefield, so anything could happen. Get up. Tell me what happened here. Du Xiaofu waved his hand and looked around. This was the first time he had encountered these evil spirits in the Heaven Demon battlefield. They were similar to the evil spirits in Kyushu's sealed ancient land. They were extremely difficult to deal with, but with extreme yang and special techniques, they could suppress and restrain each other. The Dark Seeker grass was their nemesis. Seeing that the other party's young expert didn't seem to have any intention of making things difficult for them, the dozen or so people got up and immediately told Du Xiaofu everything they knew. It turned out that they had been here for a long time, but they didn't dare to approach from afar. An ancient expert's mansion had appeared here, and evil spirits were densely packed. It had also attracted experts from all sides to fight over it. The battle was very intense, and they didn't dare to approach with their strength. Only after the experts from all sides had left did they dare to approach. They wanted to try their luck and perhaps obtain something. However, they didn't expect their luck to be so bad. There were still some scattered evil spirits hidden here. Although these evil spirits weren't very strong, they were much stronger than them. They couldn't resist. At the critical moment, if Du Xiaofu hadn't suddenly appeared to help them, they would have been in deep trouble. Many experts appeared. There were also many experts from the older generation who participated. There were also experts from the beast race. However, in the end, it seemed that an expert from the beast race called Domain Lord Tian took away the ancient inheritance. Those experts all went to chase after him. A middle-aged man who was covered in blood and was heavily injured said to Du Xiaofu. Domain Lord Tian, can you tell me more in detail? Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's expression suddenly froze. Domain Lord Tian, it seemed a bit like the name of his martial uncle, Purple Sky Venerable. Du Xiaofu couldn't help but suspect that this was the case. Domain Lord Tian's original form is a Purple Sky Marten. It's said that he's from the 7-star Hall in the central continent. The middle-aged man thought for a moment and said to Du Xiaofu. Which direction did they go in? Before the middle-aged man finished speaking, Du Xiaofu's expression suddenly changed. The original form of a Purple Sky Marten was from the 7-star Hall. Who else could it be other than his martial uncle, Purple Sky Venerable? They went in that direction. I'm afraid it's been 4 hours. The middle-aged man replied with a trembling voice. He could feel the sudden violent fluctuation of aura from Du Xiaofu's body and was trembling. Whoosh! Du Xiaofu leaped into the sky and quickly left in the direction that the middle-aged man had pointed out. It was the same direction as the heavenly Yu Mountain. His martial uncle had obtained the ancient inheritance and was being chased by many experts and forces. Du Xiaofu couldn't help but be worried. He had to go and help him. Sixth martial uncle, hang in there for a while. I'm coming. Du Xiaofu muttered to himself. The whereabouts of his martial uncles were unknown. Some of his martial uncles had fallen. Only his second martial uncle and sixth martial uncle were left outside. He couldn't let any more accidents happen. Otherwise, how could he face his master in the future? The vast mountains were incomparably vast. There were waterfalls in the mountain streams that poured down like the Milky Way. The mountains were majestic and lofty. The terrain was similar. Once one went deeper, they might even get lost in it. Du Xiaofu had encountered many attacks from demonic beasts and evil spirits along the way. However, they were all resolved with a wave of his hand. It was obvious that this place was gradually approaching the central region of the heavenly devil battlefield. It was no longer the border. It was getting more and more dangerous. There's an aura. Probing with his mind, Du Xiaofu felt the aura of living beings. Many people had appeared here before. Du Xiaofu approached. There was a huge mountain there. It was the entrance to the majestic mountain range. Human, stop right there. However, before Du Xiaofu approached, there was a low shout that sounded like muffled thunder. Beside the majestic mountain, there were 2 huge mountains that suddenly moved as if they were alive. Chapter 1902. The mountain peaks trembled as 2 dazzling beams of light shot out from each of them. They were actually 2 pairs of gigantic ferocious eyes. The 2 mountain peaks were actually 2 gigantic demonic beasts. One was a coiling python, spitting out a red tongue. The other was a gigantic lion, standing tall like a mountain. Its ferocious aura shook one's soul. The 2 demonic beasts looked down at Du Xiaofu, their eyes cold and intimidating. This place doesn't belong to you, right? I'm going to look for someone. Du Xiaofu looked at the giant python and lion. They were both famous demonic beasts on the heavenly beast roll. They were at the peak of the revered Nirvana realm and were considered overlords in the outside world. This place is no longer a place you can set foot in. Get out of here, or I'll kill you. The lion's roar was deafening as a terrifying aura spread out. Why bother talking so much to this human? He'll be just nice to fill the gaps between my teeth. The giant python's eyes were blood red, as terrifying as bloody holes. Its ferocious mouth swept out like a long whip, biting at Du Xiaofu with lightning speed. It wanted to swallow Du Xiaofu in one bite, completely ignoring Du Xiaofu. Chi La. The speed was too fast. A huge rock flew out in front of Du Xiaofu like an impact cannon and directly flew into the giant python's mouth. The terrifying shock wave shattered its fangs and blood flowed out. Its ferocious mouth was almost torn into 8 pieces. At the same time, Du Xiaofu appeared behind the giant python. He reached out with one hand and twisted the void. A spatial claw grabbed the giant python's tail and then like a snake, he swung the giant python's huge body into the air and threw it out ruthlessly. It crashed into a nearby mountain peak like a meteor. Rumble, the mountain peak collapsed and the earth shook. The giant python's head and body turned into meat paste one after another. It didn't even know how it died. This speed was too fast. When the lion reacted, it was already shocked. Its strength was not stronger than the giant python, so it didn't dare to attack. However, Du Xiaofu didn't stop. He swung the broken giant python's body again and whipped it onto the lion's back like a rope. Roar, the giant python's body was completely shattered, and the vicious lion's huge body was also directly sent flying. It miserably howled, and its flesh was cracked. It was dripping with blood, and several mountain peaks were destroyed. It was at its last gasp. Du Xiaofu's silhouette left without lingering. Within the mountain range in deep caves, auras surged violently. There were unknown towering trees that towered into the heavens, but they were all already dried up, without any signs of life. There were tree vines with a diameter of 1 zhang that wound around the mountain stream and climbed up the rocks, as vigorous as a horned dragon. At this moment, the vast mountain cave was surrounded by over 100 figures. Talisman markings suffused and dazzling like stars, and their auras surged and warped space. Domain Lord Zi Tian, you won't be able to escape. Hand over that strand of Saint Will, and we won't take that inheritance. A majestic old man with deep eyes said. Come and get it if you can. In the middle of the mountain cave, there was an old man in his 50s. His purple-patterned robe was stained with dried blood, and his long purple hair fluttered slightly. He looked at the hundreds of figures around him with blood-red eyes. Although this old man looked like he was in his 50s, his facial features were like a sculpture. When he was young, he must have been extremely handsome. Even though he was deeply besieged at this time, his temperament was extraordinary, and he exuded the air of a noble king. This person was Lord Zi Tian, who had already stepped into the domain realm. His title was also known as Domain Lord Zi Tian. Not long ago, he had obtained an ancient inheritance and was pursued by many experts. Domain Lord Zi Tian, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Although you have some relations with the barren country, you have to think carefully. Not everyone wants to avoid the barren country. A slender middle-aged man with a fair complexion looked at Domain Lord Zi Tian, and his aura was extremely strong. The Heaven Serpent Clan, the Demon Vulture Clan, the Red Fire Demonic Lion Clan. There are quite a few of you. Looking at the figures around him, Domain Lord Zi Tian recognized many of them. They were all from the big clans of the demon realm. Although they were not as powerful as the golden-winged giant rocks, dragons, and phoenixes, they were once famous in the ancient times. They had a strong foundation, and even the dragons had to give them some face. Amitabha. Someone chanted Buddha's name. His body was surrounded by golden light, and he wore a shabby kasaya. He looked like a monk, but he had long black hair. He looked middle-aged, but his face was quite handsome. He looked at Domain Lord Zi Tian and said, Domain Lord Zi Tian, that holy thought is not something you can possess with your strength. Hand it over. Why are you so stubborn? As the man finished speaking, several people behind him had fierce auras, and their eyes were fierce. They were not kind people. There are quite a lot of people. If I manage to escape today, I will have a good chat with you one by one. Looking at the long-haired monk and the others, Domain Lord Zi Tian's eyes were red, and there was a surge of coldness in them. Why are you talking so much? Let's fight first. Behind the long-haired monk, several cultivators of the domain realm with fierce auras looked greedy. It was a holy thought left behind by an ancient expert. Such an opportunity was too great. If the experts of the big forces came, they would not even have a chance to fight for it. Boom! A cold-looking old man took the lead and rushed toward Domain Lord Zetian. A circle of energy rippled in the void under his feet. He stared at Domain Lord Zetian with cold eyes like a poisonous snake, and an extremely cold chi burst out from his body. Runes fluctuated, and suddenly the void in the mountain cave fluctuated violently. The overwhelming chi and runes gathered into a huge palm print in an instant, which contained a cold evil spirit. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. With a deep shout, the cold-looking old man's huge palm pressed down, and the terrible force caused the surrounding space to collapse. Who do you think you are? If we fight one-on-one, I will have no problem killing you. Domain Lord Zetian looked up at the palm that was enlarging in his eyes and sneered. His purple robe fluttered, and an even more vigorous force burst out, as if it had turned into countless purple ribbons, entangling the huge palm and shattering it with an invisible force. Humph, the cold-looking old man snorted, and his face was a little pale. Amitba. With a Buddhist chant, the long-haired monk made a move. His hands formed a complicated handprint at lightning speed, and as the handprint was formed, the surrounding vigorous energy of heaven and earth gathered. Great Compassion Finger. As the energy gathered, the long-haired monk quickly condensed into a huge finger. The Buddha's shadow filled the air, and the Sanskrit chants were faint, but the destructive power spread out. From afar, it looked like a towering pillar, and it pressed down on Domain Lord Zetian. Great Compassion Finger, Demon Slayer. The long-haired monk shouted, and the handprint fell down. The surrounding mountain cave collapsed instantly, and the ground cracked like an abyss. The earth shook, and the mountains shook, and the surrounding boulders exploded. This handprint was too terrifying, and it was definitely not ordinary. The domain grade martial technique is not far from the divine grade. Looking at the power of this finger, Domain Lord Zetian's face turned solemn. The long-haired monk's cultivation was not bad, and his martial technique was also terrifying. Moreover, there were many experts around who were eyeing him covetously. It was unlikely that he would be able to escape today. Chapter 1903. However, it was impossible for Domain Lord Zetian to hand over a strand of sacred will. A strand of sacred will was a huge opportunity for him to step into the Saint Realm in the future. It was left behind by a true Saint Realm cultivator. Besides, would these people really let him go if he handed over the strand of sacred will? Domain Lord Zetian didn't think so. The experts all around were eyeing him covetously. Some were from the Beast region, and some were independent cultivators. Perhaps some were afraid of the desolate country, but it was different in the dark. He still had an ancient inheritance on him that would be difficult to take away. One finger slaying a demon, like a pillar that supported the heavens, and its terrifying power made the surrounding experts frown inwardly. This monk's strength was definitely extraordinary. "Fight!" shouted Purple Sky Sovereign. He had nowhere to run, but he wasn't afraid. He raised his arm, and a claw wrapped in purple light shot into the sky. Purple runes soared into the sky and swept across the sky. It crashed into the long-haired monk's claw like a bolt of purple lightning. Crackle crackle, the claw and finger collided, and the space around them became chaotic. Pitch-black spatial cracks spread out. Rumble, many of the stone walls in the surrounding caves cracked and exploded, revealing ravines that spread into the distance like a spider web. Domain Lord Zetian, your sealed domain realm cultivation isn't enough. Sneered the long-haired monk. He used his peak great domain realm cultivation to attack with all his might. His claw was about to shatter Domain Lord Zetian's claw. Humph! Domain Lord Zetian snorted. Purple runes rose from his body and transformed into his true form. It was a purple sky marten. It wasn't large, but it was incomparably domineering and ferocious. His claw once again resisted the terrifying claw. Domain Lord Zetian hadn't been in the domain realm for long, but he was already in the sealed domain realm. However, his talent was extraordinary. Even though he was in the beast region, he was able to resist the long-haired monk's peak great domain realm cultivation. Seeing that he couldn't suppress domain Lord Zetian despite using all his strength, the long-haired monk's expression darkened. He said darkly, "Everyone, attack together. We'll talk about the sacred will later." All right. The few powerful rogue cultivators behind the long-haired monk seemed to have reached an agreement. Otherwise, they would not be able to contend with the other factions and large clans. When they heard the long-haired monk's words, they immediately moved. Several terrifying auras soared into the sky and surged violently. Several attacking forces were like light beams that shot toward Domain Lord Zetian at lightning speed. The surrounding experts looked at each other with vigilance, but they had no intention to intervene. Not everyone dared to intervene. After all, the barren country was at its peak now, and experts were as numerous as clouds. The relationship between the Domain Lord Zetian and the barren country was not ordinary. He was the Demon King's martial uncle. However, if these rogue cultivators dared to touch the Domain Lord Zetian, it would not be a problem for them to fight for the divine will and inheritance. Rumble, the mountain cave rumbled, and the energy of heaven and earth raged. Several attacks were above the domain realm, and they were not much weaker than the long-haired monk. The terrifying energy fluctuations caused the space to crumble inch by inch. Domain Lord Zetian's expression was extremely grave. He had already used all his strength to deal with the monk. Now that there were several domain realm cultivators, it was impossible for him to resist. The dazzling attacks expanded in his eyes. "You want the sacred will? Dream on. Even if I die, you won't get it." Domain Lord Zetian laughed maniacally. Since he couldn't escape today, he would not let others take advantage of him. After he shouted, a terrifying aura surged out from his body again. Dazzling light shone, and purple runes filled the sky. "Be careful, he's going to self-destruct," someone exclaimed. The situation was chaotic, and his expression changed drastically. If Domain Lord Zetian self-destructed, no one would benefit from it. Instead, someone else would be affected. "Martial uncle, no." Suddenly, a voice rang out at this moment. An invisible force seeped out from space and distorted space. It directly enveloped the purple marten's rising aura, forcefully suppressing it. At the same time, a purple figure quietly appeared in front of the purple celestial marten. Domain Lord Zetian's expression changed. He looked at the figure that suddenly appeared. When he heard the familiar voice, his eyes went blank for a moment. Then, surprise surged in his eyes. Crash! The terrifying attacks in the surroundings and the long-haired monk's finger imprint also strangely stopped in the void at this moment, unable to take even half a step forward. Humph! The purple figure appeared, and a cold snort came from his throat. He waved his purple sleeve, causing the space to tremble. The long-haired monk and the other attacks quietly disappeared. Everyone was stunned, and the place was silent. Everyone's eyes were trembling in shock. The purple figure appeared clearly. It was a young man. He was tall, and his face was sharp. His eyes were clear and resolute. He ignored everyone around him and bowed respectfully to Domain Lord Zetian. He said, "Disciple greets sixth martial uncle." Good. Domain Lord Zetian put away his original body and turned into his human form. He looked at the purple-robed man who suddenly appeared and said, "Good," 3 times. Then, he laughed loudly. His laughter reverberated in the space like thunder. The purple-robed man who suddenly appeared in front of Domain Lord Zetian was none other than his martial nephew, the Demon King Du Xiaofu. Oh no, he is the Demon King Du Xiaofu. Someone recognized the purple-robed man. He was the martial nephew of Domain Lord Zetian, the young hall master of the 7-star hall, the rock emperor of the barren country, and the Demon King Du Xiaofu. Ku, some people's eyes were filled with horror. The thing that they were most afraid of had happened. They were already worried about the barren country because of Domain Lord Zetian. Now, it was the Demon King Du Xiaofu himself. He is the Demon King Du Xiaofu. The long-haired monk's expression changed. His eyes were trembling. The invisible aura of a person's life tree was enough to make his soul tremble. Run! The long-haired monk wanted to escape. As a rogue cultivator who had cultivated for many years, he was best at adapting to the situation and escaping. At this moment, he did not hesitate at all. He had heard of the brutality of the Demon King Du Xiaofu. He had even killed people from the dragons, legalism, and school of vertical and horizontal. He did not dare to stay any longer. Chi! However, just as the long-haired monk was about to escape, the space in front of him fluctuated. A figure quietly appeared beside him, and a claw was placed on his neck. It was like an eagle catching a chick. The long-haired monk could only watch helplessly, but he was unable to dodge or block the attack. Rock Emperor, please spare my life. I am willing. The long-haired monk's eyes were filled with fear. His voice was hoarse, and the throbbing from the depths of his soul made him realize that he had made the wrong choice today. Du Xiaofu stood quietly with calm eyes. His grip on the long-haired monk's claw tightened slightly. Bang! A muffled sound rang out as the void exploded. Spatial ripples surged out, and the long-haired monk's body exploded. A mist of blood poured out, and his soul was destroyed. Monk Changlu is dead. Everyone in the cave was horrified. Monk Changlu was a well-known rogue cultivator who had been famous for a long time. His cultivation was at the peak of the Great Domain realm, and many major forces had to give him face. However, he was killed by the Demon King Du Xiaofu without a word. Not good. The remaining rogue cultivators who had attacked together were all shocked. They watched Monk Changlu being killed like an ant, and the hair on their backs stood on end. Whoosh whoosh, several figures suddenly broke through the air and fled in several directions. Monk Changlu had been killed, so how could the Demon King Du Xiaofu let them go? Whoosh whoosh, looking at the fleeing figures, Du Xiaofu waved his sleeve and a green light appeared in his palm. This was Du Xiaofu's illusionary saber array. It turned into several lightning-like saber lights that pierced through the air. Bang bang bang, several fleeing figures turned into a mist of blood in the air above the cave. All of them were killed, and none of them managed to escape. The whole place was shocked and speechless. Some people's legs began to weaken, and their eyes trembled. Chapter 1904. There are quite a lot of people. Demon Vulture Clan, Sky Snake Clan. Du Xiaofu turned around and looked at the hundreds of figures around the cave. His indifferent gaze remained calm. He could sense quite a few familiar auras. Yu Rui was from the Demon Vulture Clan, who he had met in the School of Legalism, as well as the Heavenly Serpent Clan and other large clans of the Beast region. Greetings, Rock Emperor. Actually, we're just here to watch the show. We didn't do anything just now. It was Monk Changlu and the others. A slender, fair-skinned middle-aged man from the Sky Snake Clan said to Du Xiaofu, his whole body trembling. Yeah, we're just here to watch the show. We wanted to help Domain Lord Zetian, but we didn't expect the Rock Emperor to suddenly come. That's great, said a majestic old man from the Demon Vulture Clan. Rock Emperor, we'll leave now. Some people began to leave, not daring to stay any longer. If they'd known that the Demon King Du Xiaofu was nearby, they wouldn't have dared to chase after Domain Lord Zetian. They also didn't dare to address the Demon King in front of his face. That was what they called him behind his back. Yeah, we'll leave now. Many experts smiled awkwardly and planned to leave immediately. What? You want to leave already? Asked Du Xiaofu, a cold glint in his eyes. Rock Emperor, what do you mean? We didn't do anything. Our Sky Snake clan has never had any conflict with the desolate country, said the middle-aged man. Said the middle-aged man from the Sky Serpent clan. His expression changed. It seemed that the Devil King Du Xiaofu did not intend to let them go. Our Demon Vulture clan has never had any conflict with the desolate country. We didn't do anything just now. The old man from the Demon Vulture clan was pale. He brought up the Demon Vulture clan, Sky Snake clan, and other large clans, hoping that the Demon King Du Xiaofu would give them some face. Otherwise, they'd be in trouble today. A bunch of bastards who only know how to act according to the wind, cursed Domain Lord Zi Tian. Domain Lord Zi Tian scolded. These people were not like this just now. They were clearly being aggressive. They did not attack just now because they wanted to take advantage of the situation. Xiaofu, I'm fine. Let them go. However, Realm Lord Zetian didn't want to cause any trouble for Du Xiaofu. The Demon Vulture clan, the Sky Snake clan, the Blaze Flame Lion clan, and other large clans of the Beast region were not to be trifled with. Du Xiaofu already had enough enemies. Alright, I won't attack you guys either. Du Xiaofu said to the hundreds of trembling figures around him. Everyone in the surroundings revealed delighted expressions when they heard this, and numerous figures instantly soared into the sky and left swiftly. They were deeply afraid that the Demon King would go back on his word. Whoosh whoosh, hundreds of silhouettes scattered in all directions and soared into the sky, wishing that they could be faster. Aoo, suddenly, a dragon's roar and a divine elephant's cry resounded through the sky. It was like a chain of thunder from the 9 heavens. The sound waves swept out in all directions like a tsunami, causing the cave to tremble violently. The void was on the verge of collapsing, and everyone's hearts trembled with fear. Rumble. Rumble. The surging sound waves were accompanied by golden runes and ripples of energy. It was like a raging ocean, and the sound waves reverberated through the sky, causing all living beings to tremble. Ah, the hundreds of fleeing figures suddenly revealed pained expressions. The beasts couldn't help but revert to their true forms. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and their bodies cracked. This was Du Xiaofu's domineering Tao, and it contained a kind of tyrannical martial Tao. Bang bang bang, one after another, huge bodies fell from the sky like giant meteorites, crashing into the surroundings of the cave. Hundreds of figures' primordial spirits were injured, and their bodies cracked, but they survived. I didn't attack either. My throat is a little uncomfortable. Du Xiaofu's voice reverberated through the cave. Everyone could hear the coldness in his voice. Domain Lord Zi Tian could only smile bitterly. Then, Du Xiaofu and Domain Lord Zi Tian left, leaving behind the hundreds of beastmen and humans who were in a daze. That's the inheritance left behind by an ancient ancestor of the Purple Marten clan. It also contains a strand of sacred will, which can give you a lot of chances to reach the saint stage in the future. Along the way, Domain Lord Zi Tian told Du Xiaofu about the general situation. He had obtained an inheritance from an ancient ancestor of the Purple Marten clan. Congratulations, sixth uncle. Du Xiaofu was happy for his sixth uncle. A strand of sacred will was even more precious. He had 36 feathers of the true rock. It was said that if he found the other 36 feathers, he would also obtain a strand of sacred will, which would increase his chances of reaching the saint stage in the future. However, he didn't know where the other 36 feathers of the true rock were. I hope that I can reach the saint stage one day, save fourth brother, and find big brother and the others, Domain Lord Zi Tian said. Domain Lord Zi Tian said. In the past, he had been elegant and heroic, and he could be considered to have dominated a region. But now, there were a few strands of white hair in his purple hair, and his handsome face was full of vicissitudes. Over the years, Big Brother and the others had been missing, fourth brother had fallen into the hands of the devil religion, and third brother had died. Domain Lord Zetian felt terrible and sad. He hoped that he could reach the saint stage one day and take revenge on the devil religion. I'm useless. Du Xiaofu's eyes were wet. He felt guilty. As a disciple, he hadn't been able to save his master or find his uncles. Silly child, you have already done enough. With your current achievements, I believe that your master will definitely be happy and proud of you. It's just that the demon sect is too big, but you are still young. We will definitely have a chance in the future. Domain Lord Zetian patted Du Xiaofu's shoulder and said. The young man in front of him was too young, but his achievements were eye-catching. However, it was still not enough to face the devil religion. Master, please be patient for a while. I'll save you soon. Du Xiaofu gritted his teeth. He felt the 3,000 quaking thunder soul seeds in his Naiwan palace. Master was still alive. He must save him soon. Moksha, have you reached the heavenly devil battlefield? Du Xiaofu made up his mind. If he met people from the devil religion in the heavenly devil battlefield, he must find a way to find out about his master. Especially if he met Moksha. Moksha must have a high position in the devil religion. If he could capture Moksha, he should be able to get his master back from the devil religion. Later, Du Xiaofu learned from Domain Lord Zetian that second uncle master Fairy Yu, Lin Weiqi, Dongli Diao, and the other disciples of the Seven-Star Hall had also entered the heavenly devil battlefield. Some of them were even with the disciples of the Huang nation. The other situations were similar to what Qin Qinchun had said. I've heard of the heavenly Yu mountain. It's a mysterious place. Domain Lord Zetian's eyes flickered when he learned that Du Xiaofu was going to the heavenly Yu mountain. Uncle Master, come with me. We can take care of each other. Du Xiaofu wanted to bring his sixth uncle master to the heavenly Yu mountain. Anyway, he wasn't afraid of anyone in the heavenly devil battlefield. His sixth uncle master was injured, and it wasn't safe for him to go alone. Chapter 1905. Translator, H2DH2 Mr. After that, Du Xiaofu took out many pills and gave them to Domain Lord Zetian so that he could enter the desolate ancient space to recover. Domain Lord Zetian didn't stand on ceremony. He took a few pills and put the rest into his Qinquan bag. Du Xiaofu didn't stay for long. He immediately got up and headed for the heavenly Yu mountain. Dongli Qingqing's situation was still unclear, and it was still very dangerous. This made Du Xiaofu anxious. A famous expert. Du Xiaofu muttered in his heart as he made a mental note of the famous experts. More and more people appeared on the way to the heavenly Yu mountain. Du Xiaofu used the disguise divine art to change his appearance. It wasn't because he was afraid of anything, but because he didn't want to attract attention. Along the way, there were also demonic beasts and many evil spirits. Many human and beast elites fought with the evil spirits and demonic beasts. There were casualties on both sides. However, the evil spirits and demonic beasts were still slightly inferior. It was just that no one dared to be careless. They were very careful along the way. Along the way, they came across a large ancient city where living beings gathered. Only then did they breathe a sigh of relief. The evil spirits and demonic beasts didn't dare to come close to such a place. They had never heard of demonic beasts or evil spirits attacking such a place. Du Xiaofu also followed the crowd into the city, preparing to gather some information. As expected, the entire city was filled with news about the heavenly Yu mountain. The rumored heavenly Yu mountain had appeared and alarmed many elites. Many great forces were also rushing over, afraid that they would miss this great opportunity. There are countless spirit herbs in the heavenly Yu mountain. In these long years, it's rumored that there are spirit herbs that have already turned into demonic beasts. There are also sacred herbs that only exist in legends. Eating them can allow one to step into the saint realm. Du Xiaofu used the disguised divine art to hide his appearance. He entered the ancient modeled city and heard all kinds of discussions about the heavenly Yu mountain. Many living beings were in an uproar. Many supreme prodigies from the great forces are rushing over. Some elites who are searching for other mystery realms are also rushing over. I'm afraid this time, there will be a fierce battle. Although the heavenly hermit mountain has appeared, entering the heavenly hermit mountain isn't an easy task. I hope that I can enter the heavenly Yu mountain and obtain the legendary sacred medicine. When the time comes, I'll be able to reach the heavens in a single bound and compete with the current generation's heaven's chosen martial artists. I'm afraid you won't get a share of the sacred medicine. You don't even have the qualifications to be a servant of those supreme geniuses from the major factions. Do you still want to compete for the sacred medicine? Du Xiaofu did not say anything. He listened to all kinds of news and secretly looked around. He wanted to see if there were any disciples of the desolate country in this small town. He also wanted to know if there were any news about Dongli Qingqing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaoqing, and Little Xingxing. This is an ancient map related to the secrets of the heavenly Yu mountain. The heavenly devil battlefield is where the inheritances are distributed and where the demons gather. Don't miss this opportunity. There were many hawking voices in the town. It was noisy and lively, attracting the attention of many people. However, Du Xiaofu did not even look at them. He knew that they were fake. It could only be said that some cultivators were really good at doing business. However, those true experts would not be fooled. So many experts. Du Xiaofu walked through the streets and alleys. He felt the aura of many experts. There were beasts, humans, and demons. Among them, there were many familiar auras. They should be the bloodline disciples of those familiar races. Gee, all of a sudden, an 8-winged giant python soared into the sky. Its entire body was a bright and resplendent cyan color, as if it was a flowing crystal. Heavens, that's an 8-winged green crystal python. Someone exclaimed softly. That was the 8-winged green crystal python that was rumored to have disappeared. It was also an expert. That colorful and beautiful 8-winged green crystal python landed in the town and turned into a beautiful woman in a long green dress. Her face was enchanting and her figure was alluring. Many people's eyes lit up. Look, it's the famous martial artist Hui Yuan. Suddenly, such news spread, and the whole street was in an uproar. There were too many experts here. Du Xiaofu did not use the power of his primordial spirit to spy on them. On the street ahead, he saw many figures arrogantly walking over. They had extraordinary figures and outstanding temperaments. At the front was a young man in a long robe. His face was angular, and there was a terrifying aura rippling from his body. He was filled with absolute strength and danger. There was also a pressure that could not be provoked. Hui Yuan of the famous martial artist. Du Xiaofu remembered that this young man in a long robe was Hui Yuan, the lesser martial artist of the famous martial artist. He was the true number one of the younger generation of the famous martial artist, the bloodline soul of the Tiger clan. Back then, Du Xiaofu fought with Hui Yuan in the divine domain and severely injured him. Before entering the martial artist's tomb, this person's cultivation was at the Nirvana realm. At this moment, Du Xiaofu felt the aura from Hui Yuan's body. There was actually the aura of a Nirvana realm expert leaking out. It seemed that even if Hui Yuan had obtained great benefits in the martial artist's tomb, the famous martial artist must have invested a lot in him. He's Hui Yuan. So handsome. Handsome. The appearance of such a young martial artist, and the number one of the younger generation of the famous martial artist, immediately attracted the attention of many women. It said that the famous martial artist is pursuing a person called Dongli Qingqing. She seems to be a Nirvana realm expert as well. That Dongli Qingqing is from the Great Luan sect of the Middle State. She's the woman of the Demon King, Du Xiaofu. What? The woman of the Demon King, Du Xiaofu? Is the famous martial artist going to war with the desolate country? Du Xiaofu finally heard the news about Dongli Qingqing. He immediately probed with his mind, and a light flashed across his eyes. That Dongli Qingqing is also very strong. Many experts of the famous martial artist have besieged her several times, but she still managed to escape. I heard that Dongli Qingqing might be nearby. I guess this Hui Yuan came here for Dongli Qingqing other than the heavenly Yu mountain. Hearing some of the discussions in the city, Du Xiaofu felt a little relieved. At least the famous martial artist couldn't do anything to Dongli Qingqing yet. Famous martial artist. Looking at the group of people from the famous martial artist, Du Xiaofu's eyes flashed with a meaningful light. He had completely remembered the famous martial artist. However, Du Xiaofu didn't immediately make a move. It wasn't that he was afraid of becoming enemies with the famous martial artist, but that only the famous martial artist knew the whereabouts of Dongli Qingqing. Those who followed the famous martial artist might be able to find Dongli Qingqing immediately. At the very least, they could find her at the same time as the famous martial artist. This Hui Yuan should be the main force to deal with Dongli Qingqing. Qingqing, I'm here. Du Xiaofu muttered in his heart. He felt very guilty. All these years, not only had he been unfilial to his master, he had also let down the women around him. Dongli Qingqing, Su Muxin, and Ouyang Xuan. He had let down none of them. The people from the Taoist school are also here. That's the young supreme martial artist of the Taoist school, Su Yangzi. The small city was in an uproar again. Groups of figures appeared on the streets, and their auras were very powerful. Walking in front was a young man in a yellow Taoist robe. He had a handsome face and a gentle temperament. However, the aura on his body was enough to make people tremble for no reason. It's that guy. How could Du Xiaofu not recognize this person? It was Su Yangzi of the Taoist school. There were many familiar figures around him, such as Guan Lianin, Su Lingzi, and so on. The arrival of a supreme martial artist from one of the 9 great families made the small city lively. Du Xiaofu didn't recognize the people from the Taoist school. He only secretly paid attention to the people from the famous martial artist. However, the people from the famous martial artist didn't seem to leave even once. After finding a courtyard, they didn't come out again. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged on a street corner not far away. This small city was already full of people, and there were cultivators resting everywhere. However, not many people could find a place to stay in this small city with the power of the famous martial artist. However, the small city was not calm. After a few hours, there was a bright light and a Buddhist aura appeared. Many novice monks and bald monks appeared. Some of the monks at the front had 9 shining rings on their heads. Heng Luan, Ninefold Spirit. Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged on the street corner, opened his eyes and saw a young monk in a golden cassock. Beside him was a familiar figure. It was Heng Luan of the Taoist school and Ninefold Spirit. A genius from the immemorial gold-devouring rat clan is here. Heavens, that's the descendant of the great snow mountain, Lian Qingrong. Another supreme martial artist. The small city was in an uproar. Many experts entered and stayed in the small city. Among them, there were 8 beautiful maids who came with a man in white, causing the biggest uproar. Du Xiaofu opened his eyes again. There was a flash of light in his eyes. It had been a long time since he had seen that guy. These experts, geniuses, and supreme martial artists appeared one after another. Then, they all looked for a place to rest. They seemed to have been in a hurry and were tired. They wanted to stay in this small city and gather some information. Those are people from the desolate country. Just like this, a few more hours passed. When such a commotion entered his ears, Du Xiaofu's slightly closed eyes immediately opened. At the end of the street, there was a commotion. Many figures were emitting a powerful aura. These figures were familiar to Du Xiaofu. At the front was a charming woman. She had a face that could topple countries and cities, and her eyes were always smiling. Her black hair was as smooth as a waterfall, and it reached her soft waist and buttocks. She was enchanting and graceful, and also holy and noble. On the left and right of this charming woman, there was a man in a black robe with dark eyes and a man in green clothes with a green pattern on the outside. The man's robe fluttered in the wind, and his shoulder-length hair danced in the wind. He had a fierce aura. Little green, little tiger, Mo Tian Xiao. When these people appeared, Du Xiaofu's eyes lit up. However, he did not show himself. He suppressed the fluctuation in his heart and quietly watched from afar. Du Xiaoqing and Little Tiger from the desolate country. That is the sister and mount of the Demon King. There is also Heavenly Wolf Mo Tianxiao. He has joined the desolate country and has a very high status there. He is also a terrifying supreme martial artist. The appearance of the desolate country's people will cause a commotion no less than the arrival of any supreme martial artist. There are experts coming. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked outside the city. There were some living beings flying over, but in the distant void, there was a very powerful aura approaching. The strength of the aura was extraordinary. It was not restrained at all, and it made Du Xiaofu's expression change. Chapter 1906. Translator, H2DH2 Mr. There was far more than one powerful aura. Du Xiaofu also felt a sense of déjà vu. Whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, from the distant void outside the small city, a number of rainbow-colored figures descended, bringing with them the sound of wind whistling through the air. Boom! The first two figures were as fast as lightning, ignoring the broken and mottled city walls as they hovered in the air. Their auras were vast, shaking the entire city. Four gazes swept across the city like lightning. The first figure was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s. His appearance was very ordinary, but that inexplicable aura and presence was enough to make anyone revere and look up to him. It's him. When he saw this middle-aged man, Du Xiaofu's calm eyes suddenly fluctuated violently. A chill involuntarily surged out of his body, but he immediately suppressed it. How could Du Xiaofu forget this middle-aged man? This was the old supremacy of legalism. Beneath his sanctimonious appearance, he was actually the most shameless and despicable person of all. Dragons. At this moment, there was another middle-aged man beside the old supremacy of legalism, causing Du Xiaofu's brows to twitch slightly. The aura of dragons rippled unreservedly from this middle-aged man, causing all the beasts in the small city to tremble. This middle-aged man and the old supremacy of legalism stood side by side, their gazes like lightning as they searched for something in the city. These two people did not hide their auras too much at this moment. These were two terrifying existences who could move unhindered in the world. However, Du Xiaofu was not too concerned. Whether it was the old supremacy of legalism or that dragon's expert, they were not as strong as Long Teng. Although these two people were strong, Du Xiaofu did not feel any pressure at this moment. However, Du Xiaofu resisted the urge to make a move. He did not want to expose his identity and follow the famous family to Dongli Qingqing. They're looking for someone. Du Xiaofu stared at the old reverend and the expert from the dragon race. The two of them didn't restrain their auras and were scanning the area from a low altitude. They were clearly searching for something. Du Xiaofu was worried that the two of them were looking for the desolate country's people. With the strength of Mo Tianxiao, Little Tiger Du, and Du Xiaoqing, it would be difficult for them to resist the old Great Lord and the dragons. They would pay a huge price. Whoosh whoosh, the old lord of legalism and the middle-aged man from the dragons were clearly not alone. Behind them, the sound of wind breaking could be heard. Many figures had also arrived and stopped behind them. Du Xiaofu saw many familiar figures. Some of the dragons and legalism elders, and even Elder Long Bao from the dragons were among them. When he encountered Long Bao and Long Bao in the beast region, Du Xiaofu had to risk his life. However, when he saw Long Bao and Long Bao again, Du Xiaofu only glanced at them indifferently and did not pay any attention to them. However, when he saw these two people, Du Xiaofu wanted to thank these two dragons' elders for inadvertently handing over one of the Xianhuang 4 elephants' seal in exchange for Dragon 5th. Otherwise, he would not have known where to find that seal. It's the experts from the dragons and legalism. When such experts arrived in the small city, some people with good eyesight recognized them. Immediately, the streets and alleys of the small city were in an uproar. Those auras were not hidden at all. They were so oppressive that they could not breathe. Their xian qi stagnated and their bodies trembled. Such powerful auras also alarmed Hui Yuan, Lian Qingrong, Su Yangzi, Heng Luan, Zhou Xingling, and the other supreme geniuses who had entered the city to rest. They all came out. In a building, the beautiful 8-winged green crystal python, who had transformed into a woman in a green dress, also looked at the sky. She studied the people from the school of legalism and the dragon clan with her enchanting face. Her green eyes were enchanting and calm. The desolate nation. Soon, the old sovereign of legalism saw Mo Tianxiao, Du Xiaoqing, and Little Tiger. The corners of his eyes twitched and he could not help but shoot out coldly. When the other elders and experts from the legalism and dragons saw Du Xiaoqing and the other desolate nation disciples, their expressions immediately turned cold. The enmity between the desolate nation and the legalism had reached a point where they would not rest until one of them was dead. There was no need for words. Sensing the gazes from the old sovereign of legalism, Mo Tianxiao, Du Xiaoqing, and Little Tiger's expressions darkened. With so many experts and the old sovereign of legalism present, the desolate nation would definitely be at a disadvantage if they fought. They would have to pay a huge price. Could it be that the dragons and legalism are here for the desolate nation? I'm afraid a bloody battle is unavoidable. The experts from the dragon clan and the legalism school had come, and the people from the barren country were also present. Some people in the small city had already noticed that something was amiss. It was likely that so many experts from the dragon clan and the legalism school had come for the people from the barren country. As for the enmity between the desolate nation and the legalism, dragons, and school of vertical and horizontal, it had already spread throughout the world. There were probably not many people who did not know about it. Su Yangzi and the rest of the people from the Taoist sect were also secretly focused when they saw this scene. The desolate nation's lineup was clearly not their match. Once the battle started, the Taoist sect would have to make a choice. Although the Taoist sect had always had a good relationship with the desolate nation, they had not officially made a clear choice. This choice was probably difficult for the Taoist disciples present to make. Lian Qingrong's expression also changed. Once the battle started, the desolate nation would definitely be at a disadvantage. At that time, he would have no choice but to reveal his identity. The atmosphere in the small city suddenly became tense. The air froze and the living beings trembled. Du Xiaofu's eyes fluctuated. Once the legalism and dragons made a move against the desolate nation, he would have no choice but to take action. Boom! Suddenly, in this tense atmosphere, an exceptionally terrifying aura fluctuated from the distant sky. In an instant, a dazzling golden light spread from afar in the air. The dazzling golden light made it difficult for the living beings in the small city to open their eyes and look directly at it. When the aura and dazzling golden light spread from the sky, the experts from the dragons and the old sovereign of legalism immediately changed their expressions and looked askance. Whoosh whoosh, as the golden light appeared, the sound of the wind breaking was heard. Rumble, immediately after, in the distant sky of the small city, rays of golden light fell from the sky like thunder from the 9 heavens. Dozens of tall and majestic golden figures walked out from the golden light. The golden light converged like the sun setting in the west. The dozens of figures filled the square with majestic aura, releasing a domineering pressure. As the dozen or so figures descended at this moment, a smile immediately appeared on Du Xiaofu's face. The blood in his body secretly boiled and fluctuated. "It's the Golden-Winged Rock clan," someone exclaimed softly. Suddenly, the small city was stunned. Many people's eyes trembled violently. That domineering and majestic aura, the terrifying pressure of a supreme beast, was even more powerful than that of the dragons. It was the Golden-Winged Rock clan. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was extremely familiar with the dozen or so figures that appeared above the small city. The fifth elder, Jialo Yuantu, and the fourth elder, Jialo Yi, were among them, as well as many disciples of the Golden-Winged Rock clan. There were 3 figures in the lead. On the left and right were 2 old men with white eyebrows and beard. One of them looked old, wore a scholarly robe, and had golden eyes. It was the second elder and the third elder. At the center was a young man who wore a wide yellow robe with gold trimmings. He stood silently at a low altitude, and he seemed like a piece of flawless jade. He possessed an extraordinarily handsome appearance and extraordinary charm, and he even imperceptibly emanated an overbearing aura. That kind of aura had nothing to do with cultivation strength. It faintly suppressed Lian Qingrong, Mo Tianxiao, Su Yangzi, and Hui Yuan. He is Jialo Jueyu, the supreme being of the Golden-Winged Rock clan. Someone recognized Jialo Jueyu. Such a young man was the supreme being of the Golden-Winged Rock clan. He had already left a great reputation in the world. However, at this moment, when the Golden-Winged Rock clan arrived, along with the second elder, the third elder, the fourth elder, and the fifth elder of the older generation, the Legalism clan lord and the expert from the Dragon's clan could not help but look a little unnatural. Greetings to the elders. When Du Xiaoqing and the others saw the Golden-Winged Rock clan arrive, a smile immediately bloomed on their solemn faces. They recovered their beautiful smiles and bowed. There was no need to be polite with the Golden-Winged Rock clan and the desolate country. Everyone knew that they were practically family. There were people who dared to attack the desolate country, but not many people dared to attack the Golden-Winged Rock clan. Even though the Golden-Winged Rock clan had been on the same side as the desolate country all these years, no one dared to openly attack the Golden-Winged Rock clan. Seeing the Golden-Winged Rock clan arrive, Su Yangzi, Lian Qingrong, and the others also secretly relaxed. The corners of their mouths curled up into a smile. They were all intentionally or unintentionally looking at the unnatural faces of the Legalism clan and the Dragon's clan. Jialo Jueyu's gaze swept across the tense little city. When he saw the Legalism clan, the Dragon's clan, and the people from the desolate country, he immediately knew what was going on. "Little Qing, you guys are here too." With a leap, Jialo Jueyu's charming figure appeared beside Mo Tianxiao and Du Xiaoqing. An invisible aura fluctuated, and the surrounding space silently distorted. A pressure quietly spread out. It was obvious that he was secretly targeting the Legalism clan and the Dragon's clan. "Little Qing, did someone bully you?" The second elder's aura was calm as he stood with his hands behind his back. His gaze, intentionally or unintentionally, swept across the formation of the Dragon's clan and the Legalism clan. He was unreasonably domineering. "Not yet. We just arrived." Little Qing smiled faintly. Her face was like the epithelum of the world. Her beautiful smile was enchanting and holy. Over the years, she had lost some of her youthfulness and gained a kind of maturity. "That's good. Otherwise, I'll slap them to death," the third elder said. His eyes shone with golden light. His temper was much worse than the second elder's. Then, more than 10 experts from the Golden-Winged Rock clan landed in the desolate country's formation. The surrounding people looked at each other. A great battle was about to break out. At this moment, with the arrival of the experts from the Golden-Winged Rock clan, the situation immediately changed. Chapter 1907. Hearing the second elder and the third elder of the golden-winged great rocks, the eyes of the legalism High Lord and the middle-aged expert of the dragons twitched. Originally, they had an absolute chance of winning against the desolate country. However, with so many powerful cultivators from the golden-winged great Ping bird clan joining the fray, there was probably no hope at all. Jialo Guanyu, Jialo Zhiheng, stop making oblique accusations. The golden-winged great rocks are still unable to cover the sky with one hand. This world is not the ancient times. The old great lord spoke to the great golden-winged Peng bird race. Even with his temper, he could not endure such words. Han Ke, if you're not convinced, I'll spar with you. Anyway, I've long disliked your legalism. Some things have to be settled sooner or later. Let's collect some interest today. The second elder directly picked on the old patriarch of the legalism family. He was just short of pointing at his nose and scolding him. The enmity between the legalism family and the junior patriarch was clearly against the golden-winged great rocks as well. If it were not for some other concerns, the golden-winged great rocks would have lost their patience long ago. Now that the heavenly devil battlefield had opened, some of the restraints and apprehensions of the major clans and races would slowly disappear. Looking at the second elder of the golden-winged great rocks, the old High Lord of legalism really didn't dare to casually make a move. It wasn't that he was afraid, but he definitely didn't have any confidence. Moreover, the golden-winged great rocks had the advantage in numbers. There were also Taoists, Buddhists, and other famous people. Do the golden-winged great rocks really think they're invincible? The middle-aged dragons expert couldn't help but ask. The dragons and the golden-winged rocks had a grudge since ancient times. The third elder looked at the middle-aged dragons with a golden light in his eyes. You must be Long Ting's grandson, Long Ming. I heard that you're also a half-step Nirvana supremacy, but not long ago, Long Ting was killed by our young clan leader. As a grandson, you're really filial, wanting to accompany your grandfather so soon. The news of Du Xiaofu killing Long Ting not long ago had spread, and it was immediately known to all major factions. The golden-winged rocks had also heard of it. However, not everyone knew about this news. When the third elder said this, the entire city was stunned. The Devil King Du Xiaofu had appeared in the heavenly devil battlefield and had even killed the dragon clan's ancestor, Long Teng. This news was no different from a bomb that struck everyone present who didn't know, causing them to be flabbergasted. Long Ting's grandson. Du Xiaofu secretly sized up Long Ming. Long Ting's grandson had a very strong aura. He was a half-step Nirvana supremacy, which proved that his talent was extraordinary. His aura wasn't any weaker than the legalism supremacy. After hearing the third elder's words, Du Xiaofu knew that the second elder was called Jialo Guanyu, while the third elder was called Jialo Zhiheng. As for the legalism supremacy, he should be called Han Ke Feng. He really lived up to his name, very wicked. At this moment, the middle-aged man called Long Ming's face was as cold as frost. He was extremely gloomy as he glared fiercely at the third elder of the golden-winged great rocks. Long Ming was Long Ting's grandson. His grandfather had been killed by Du Xiaofu, so he had naturally received the news. Just now, he had wanted to settle the score with the people from the desolate country. Who knew that the people from the golden-winged rock clan would suddenly come as well? But now that his grandfather had been killed, one could imagine how Long Ming felt. He couldn't bear it. Business is more important. Bear with it for a while. There will be a chance to settle the score. Sensing Long Ming's aura, Han Kuayoyo was someone who had lived for thousands of years after all. Her mental state and temperament were not ordinary. She transmitted her voice to Long Ming. If they were to start a war with the desolate country and the great golden-winged rocks, they would not be able to gain any advantage. The Taoist sect was close to the desolate country, and the Buddhist sect was also present. They had to be careful. This debt will be repaid in double. Long Ming said in a deep voice. His gaze was filled with meaning, but he held it back after Han Yuanshan transmitted his voice. He understood the situation very well. If they were to fight, they wouldn't gain any advantage. Humph. Jialo Guanyu and Jialo Zhihan could only watch helplessly as Long Ming and the others showed no signs of fighting. Although they weren't afraid of the dragons and the legalism, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. If they were to fight, even if they could wipe out 1,000 enemies, they would suffer great losses. Long Ming and Han Ke-fong weren't easy to deal with either. Today's matter has nothing to do with others. The legalism and the dragons are here for other matters. Those who have nothing to do with it, please step back. Han Ke-fong said, his voice echoing throughout the city. Not for the desolate country. Du Xiaofu looked at Han Yuanshan, who was flying low in the sky. He had thought that the legalism and the dragons were here for the desolate country. But now, it seemed that Han Ke-fong and the dragons were here for other matters and other people. The dragons and the legalism aren't here for the desolate country. The small city was in an uproar. Some people were surprised, but no one wanted to be implicated and they all retreated. But the Buddhists, famous scholars, Lian Qingrong, the desolate country, the golden-winged great rocks, and the Taoists didn't make any moves. They just watched the legalism and the dragons' actions quietly. In just a few breaths, the streets and alleys around the small city were emptied. All the living creatures retreated, not wanting to be implicated and suffer an unexpected calamity. Han Ke-fong looked down at the sky, searching for something. His eyes were like lightning and his face was gloomy. Coupled with the provocation he had just received, his voice was cold and gloomy. Come out, you can't escape. I'm sure you're here. Why struggle pointlessly? His voice echoed in every corner of the small city and fell into everyone's ears. Who are the legalism and the dragons looking for? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows inwardly. Someone who could make the legalism, Han Ke-fong, and the dragons pursue together couldn't be simple. The moment Han Ke-feng's voice fell, the entire city looked at each other, but there was no reaction. Humph, it's just a pointless struggle. Do you like to hide? Let's see how long you can hide. Han Ke-fong snorted coldly. With a wave of his hand, several rays of light appeared in his palm like electric arcs. In the end, they shot out from his palm and flew down toward the small city. The dazzling rays of light flashed like spirit snakes in the surrounding crowd, causing panic and fear to surge out of many living creatures. However, no one dared to stop them, afraid that they would provoke the legalism and the dragons. And these spirit snake-like rays of light didn't cause any harm to anyone. As if they were searching for something, they constantly flew through the crowd. In the end, the rays of light finally stopped in front of a thin figure that had been deliberately hiding in the crowd. With a trembling sound, the rays of light shone brightly, as if they were about to transform into several sharp arrows, and a terrifying aura began to spread out. Whoosh! At this moment, the thin figure's robe suddenly shook, and an invisible wave of air rushed out. A powerful aura surged out, distorting the void and shattering the spirit's snake-like rays of light. Chapter 1908. Swish swish. In that instant, everyone's gazes landed on the thin figure. The thin figure's clothes were not ostentatious, but he was always shrouded in a black robe. The aura on his body rippled, but it was very ordinary. It was impossible to detect anything special about him in the entire city. However, at this moment, everyone's gazes were focused on this person. They all knew that this was the person who had provoked the legalism, Han Ke, and Long Ming to join forces to hunt him down. Kiki. When the thin figure shattered the several rays of light, Han Ke immediately sneered in the air. Long Ming and the rest also had cold looks in their eyes. Waves of aura spread out from the void, solidifying in the entire city and enveloping the sky. Swish swish. The people around the skinny, black-robed figure immediately retreated. They dared not stand beside him at all. The school of legalism and the dragon clan had come for him, so standing beside him right now was equivalent to courting death without a doubt. Once they were affected, they would not even be able to put up any resistance. Seems familiar. Du Xiaofu muttered to himself as he stared at the hidden figure. His sharp Yuan spirit detected a familiar aura from the figure's body when he carefully probed. Han Ke sneered, looking at the black-robed figure as he said in a low voice, "You can't hide. You will die today." The thin black-robed figure lowered his head slightly as he looked at the retreating figures around him. Suddenly, he shouted in a low voice, "If you want to kill me, you will have to pay the price in blood. Let's see who dies first." As he shouted, a terrifying murderous aura suddenly surged out from his body. His black robe was torn to shreds as his aura swept out and soared into the sky. Such an aura caused the surrounding living beings to tremble. This person was definitely not weak. He was probably not much weaker than Han Kuoying and Long Ming. The expressions of the surrounding spectators changed. The black robe around the figure was torn to shreds, revealing a man in a dark red robe. The hood of the robe covered half of his head. He raised his head slightly to look at Han Kuoying and Long Ming in the air. His face was chiseled and his body was surrounded by a baleful aura. His dark and deep icy eyes were filled with a sharp and profound gaze. "It's him." When this person appeared, many of the gazes in the crowd changed in shock. This was especially true for Jialo Jueyu, Su Yangzi, Heng Luan, Ninefold Spirit, Du Shaoqing, Little Tiger Du, Mo Tianshao, Lian Qingrong, and the others. Heaven Fiend, Lonely Sky Howl. Du Xiaofu, who was in the crowd, was stunned when he saw the man with sharp eyes and a murderous aura. No wonder he felt a sense of déjà vu. It was this guy. Sigh, what a pitiful guy. After the astonishment on the faces of Lonely Sky Howl, Jialo Jueyu, Lian Qingrong, and the others faded, they looked at Lonely Sky Howl and felt their hearts ache. No wonder the legalism's Han Kuoying and the dragons came to hunt this guy down. They were the ones who knew the reason the best. It's Heaven Fiend Yelu Han. No wonder Han Kuoying and Long Ming came. Su Yangzi, Heng Luan, and Hui Yuan's expressions changed when they saw the man in the dark red robe surrounded by a baleful aura. They more or less knew the reason. Su Yangzi, Heng Luan, and Hui Yuan were all present in the God Domain. Back in the God Domain, Heaven Fiend Yelu Han and Heavenly Wolf Mo Tianshao had teamed up with legalism's Qin Wudi, School of Vertical and Horizontal's Gongsun Wuji, and the dragon's Long San to deal with the demon king Du Xiaofu. Later on, everyone found out that it was Heavenly Wolf Mo Tianshao and Heaven Fiend Yelu Han's plan. In truth, those two had been working with the demon king Du Xiaofu for a long time. They had told the demon king Du Xiaofu about Gongsun Wuji, Long San, Qin Wudi, and the others' weaknesses. Only then did the demon king Du Xiaofu kill them on the spot. Qin Wudi, Gongsun Wuji, and the others had been killed. The fall of the sovereigns caused the legalism, dragons, and school of vertical and horizontal to suffer disastrous losses. Later on, Mo Tianshao appeared in the desolate nation. He held a high position and was below only one person. This made everyone even more certain that Mo Tianshao and Heaven Fiend Yelu Han had teamed up a long time ago. Qin Wudi, Gongsun Wuji, and the others had been working together for dozens of years and possessed peerless talent, but in the end, they had fallen at the hands of the demon king Du Xiaofu. Heaven Fiend Yelu Han is from the desolate nation, right? Of course. In the divine domain, the demon king Du Xiaofu personally admitted that Heavenly Wolf Mo Tianshao had arrived in the desolate nation a long time ago. It said that back in the divine domain, Heaven Fiend Yelu Han secretly helped the demon king Du Xiaofu kill Gongsun Wuji, Qin Wudi, and Long San, these peerless talents. No wonder the legalism, school of vertical and horizontal, and dragons have been searching for Heaven Fiend Yelu Han. Discussions broke out all around. The matter of the divine domain had long since spread. In the Heavenly Devil battlefield, the school of vertical and horizontal, dragons, and legalism had also been searching for Heaven Fiend Yelu Han, causing a huge commotion. However, when Yelu Han heard these discussions, his chiseled face twitched a little, and his expression became very unnatural. To Yelu Han, he was the only one who knew what had happened. How could he be in cahoots with the demon king Du Xiaofu? It was clear that after being ruthlessly ravaged by Du Xiaofu, he had been tricked. Thinking back to that time, Yelu Han still had lingering fears. Du Xiaofu was too cruel, he had almost been torn apart by him. Every time Yelu Han recalled how he had been tricked, he would gnash his teeth in hatred. Ever since he had left the divine domain, he had been hiding all over the place, afraid that the legalists would find him. After entering the Heavenly Devil battlefield, Yelu Han had been even more careful. However, he still couldn't escape the pursuit of the dragons and school of vertical and horizontal. His whereabouts had been exposed, and he had been chased all the way here. Listening to the discussions around him, Yelu Han wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He was filled with hatred. But to Han Ke, Long Ming, and the other dragons and legalism disciples, it was as if they had been slapped in the face. One could imagine how they felt. Yelu Han, today I will definitely turn your bones to dust. Long Ming was furious. He had been suppressing his anger, and now he had found a place to vent it. I'll say it again. The deaths of Long San, Qin Wudi, and Gongsun Wuji have nothing to do with me. Yelu Han shouted. He wasn't afraid, but he was still suppressing his anger. He had been tricked by that bastard Du Xiaofu. Yelu Han, do you think we're fools? If you really joined forces with Qin Wudi and Gongsun Wuji, why didn't the Demon King kill you in the end? I once escaped a calamity because that bastard Du Xiaofu called you brother and gave you heavenly treasures to heal your injuries. You even drank Long San's dragon bone soup. Now you're saying that you have nothing to do with Du Xiaofu? Is that even possible? A thin middle-aged man walked out from the legalism group, his eyes shining with a dazzling light. He had hidden in the crowd to avoid a calamity, and he had personally seen Yelu Han and the Demon King call each other brother. You dare to touch a disciple of the dragons? Unforgivable. Long Ming was furious, and his shout was like a dragon's roar. Long San had been stewed and eaten. This was a blatant provocation to the dragons. You're the bastard. All of you legalism are bastards, said Du Xiaoqing. She glared at the middle-aged man from the legalism group who had just spoken. She couldn't tolerate anyone insulting her brother. Looking at Yelu Han, Heavenly Wolf Mo Tian Zhao's eyes lit up. Then he smiled and said to Heavenly Demon Yelu Han warmly, Brother Yelu, there's no need to waste words with them. Although you didn't join the barren country, we did that together. As long as you say the word, the barren country will stand behind you. They can't do anything to you. When Mo Tian Zhao's voice faded, Yelu Han's angular face became even more gloomy. At that moment it was as if a herd of strange beasts were galloping through his heart. Sure enough, they were together. It seems like only Mo Tian Zhao joined the barren country and Yelu Han didn't. Everyone started discussing again. Mo Tian Zhao had personally admitted it, so what happened back then couldn't be fake. This guy, what a ruthless attack. Lian Qingrong, Zhelo Jueyu, and the others couldn't help but glance at Mo Tian Zhao. They didn't think that this guy would be so ruthless. At this time, it was no doubt adding fuel to the fire and ruthlessly attacking Yelu Han. Yelu Han probably wouldn't be able to clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. Long Ming, Han Ke Fong and the others had gloomy expressions. There was no need to say more about their enmity with the barren country. With Jialo Guanyu and the others from the golden-winged Great Peng clan, they wouldn't be able to deal with Du Xiaoqing and Mo Tian Zhao today. However, if the barren country interfered in Yelu Han's matter today, they would be unable to deal with Yelu Han, who they had spent a lot of effort to find. As for Yelu Han, Han Ke Fong and the others also suspected that there was a problem. Maybe it was Du Xiaofu who had deliberately set up a trap. After all, they weren't fools. However, Heavenly Wolf Mo Tian Xiao had joined the barren country, while someone like Yelu Han hadn't been killed by Du Xiaofu. This was undoubtedly a huge problem for the barren country. Also, at the Sovereign Tomb Square, there were people from the School of Legalism who had personally seen Yelu Han and the Demon King calling each other brothers. Han Ke Fong couldn't help but believe it. Heavenly Demon Yelu Han had probably betrayed Qin Wudi and Gongsun Wuji in order to obtain some great benefits. If this person didn't die, then the School of Legalism and the others would lose all face. They still couldn't deal with the barren country, but if they couldn't kill Yelu Han today, then the School of Legalism and the dragons would really fall. As for Long Ming and the other dragons, just the fact that Yelu Han had drunk Long San's dragon bone soup was enough to make the dragons want to kill Yelu Han no matter what. Mo Tian Xiao smiled faintly. Looking at the expressions of the people around him, he knew that the effect was what he wanted. However, in Mo Tian Xiao's heart, he didn't want to plot against Yelu Han. Not only did he not have any ill intentions towards Yelu Han, he even had some feelings for him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have walked together with Yelu Han back then. At this moment, Yelu Han's situation was already very clear. He was most likely doomed. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.